Good evening, fellow heretics. We are back, and have we missed you guys?
Oh, so much.
Oh, man. But we're back now. We got a whole new season episode thing this year. And we're going to kick it off with two very special guests. But before we bring them on, we didn't introduce ourselves. See, we're rusty.
We didn't do our thing.
I'm just going to start all over.
Good evening, fellow heretics.
Leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow. Yeah. Fucking goddamn. Good evening, fellow heretics. Welcome to tonight's episode. I'm your host, Captain Dadpool.
And I'm Natty Nat. And this
you are watching Nerds
and Heresy.
Hold on to your butts.
Fucking nailed it. Did y'all see that?
So smooth.
That was intense.
We're not out of practice at all.
I feel like my hair has just been sheared back. Like, what are we about to get into?
Oh, so much.
Live streaming is not like riding a bike, turns out.
I was just headbanging. Don't mind me.
It's like roller skating down a bumpy hill.
I know. I want to introduce you guys. I really do. But I've just got to make a comment about the fact that we have really pushed the concept of geologic heathenism into our intro. Because we've used Jurassic World and we have a lava flow. I'm just obsessing. Anyway, hey, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Introduce yourself. Plug yourself in.
Plug yourselves. Go for it, Chad.
All right. Well, for those who don't know, I'm Archradish on TikTok, aka Chad. My name is actually Chad. I didn't choose it because I'm a douchebag. And I would like to add to Natty's point that geologic heresy rocks. So there is that.
Chad. How's Chad doing? I always tease him about his name. I'm Lindsay. Hi, Cult Chronicles out on TikTok. And I'm just here for the fun to share stories. Chad and I were both raised in a crazy ass cult, separately, not together. But we were raised up in this stuff and we're here to talk about it.
Yeah. So
I am so wanting to dive into that.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
I want to dive into the trauma. Be ready. I will ask the hard questions.
Well, after 2 years of therapy, I think we're ready.
Okay, good.
We'll start off a little lighter.
Yeah, probably.
And we're gonna go through
Rainbows and Sunshine.
Have you guys? We're still talking about
quite that light.
Okay. Damn it.
But rather just the overall, not so personal side. Just talk about. Give us a little background into the history. And some of its controversial practices and
tell us about
scandals
the itself.
And Bill himself. Yeah,
I'm glad we're starting with the lighter stuff.
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's be honest. This is more like softcore versus hardcore. We're just starting soft.
But it's all porn.
Everybody knows the word, the safe word. So we'll.
Chad, I'm gonna let you start, and I'll fill in. How's that?
Sure thing. All right. So the Cinemax version is,
Cinemax.
He says softcore. So yeah,
I have a DVD with that title.
So
stole that joke from Chad. Anyway,
you're welcome. So yeah, the Institute in Basic Life Principles, or IBLP, was started by a man named Bill Gothard. And Gothard himself came to prominence in the 1960s and 1970s. He was a minister who graduated from Wheaton College. Yep, there you have it. There's the infamous Institute in Basic Life Principles sign. So he graduated from Wheaton College and started a ministry right at the peak of Vietnam, the civil rights movement, and all sorts of social upheaval in America, where he posited that all the problems in the world could be fixed by going back to a biblical sense of authority. And he was more than happy to be that authority for pretty much everyone. He promoted a patriarchal system in which men were in charge, women assumed a subservient role in the household and in society at large, and children were subservient to that. Yeah, that's Bill Gothard right there. And like I mentioned, he's old as fuck. He's still around. He started all this in the 60s and 70s, and he continued on through the 80s and 90s, where he branched out the Institute in Basic Youth Conflicts that he started into the Institute in Basic Life Principles, and eventually the Advanced Training Institute of America, or ATIA, which became the homeschooling branch of the cult. And that is what Lindsay and I were raised in, Cult Chronicles here. So ATI was essentially the homeschooling branch that taught the life principles that Bill thought were important, the principles of authority, 49 character qualities as defined by him. And the goal of it was to raise up an entire generation of people who were fully indoctrinated from kindergarten through 12th grade into his teachings. And then after they graduated high school, they would work at one of his training centers, which there were several worldwide, everywhere from Oklahoma City to Moscow to New Zealand, even all the way, to the farthest reaches of the globe, basically to be free and cheap labor for him to advance his ministry empire, and with the promise that we would learn life skills that would make us successful later. Yeah. But really, it was just an exploitation to get as many people fully invested into his cult, basically for however long he could use them.
Yeah,
right.
And that's quite the I feel like whenever we try to explain this, it feels like it's like 18 different steps of like, he did this, then he became this, then he changed the name, then it did this, and then he had the basic seminar, then he had the advanced seminar, then he did this, then he started these ministries. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, for all these families that go to all these Christian seminars that I'm doing, here's a booster pack for your whole family. Here's ATI for you. And all of those who had already taken the whole punch of Kool-Aid and walked out the door with it, they were like, this is great. We'll take it all. Give us everything. We're so immersed in your teachings now. And to them, the wisdom booklets, which were our curriculum, basically just it only enhanced and advanced like what the parents wanted their kids to know and learn. They were able to take them away from society, get them out of the schools, get them away from friends, and just isolate us into a full indoctrination program.
So something you two don't know about me is that I may or may not have initially converted. I can't really say that, but I have used some of the wisdom books as a teacher.
Really? I'm like, tell me the how, the why, the that.
Okay,
what?
So we still haven't had a full episode diving into me in my past.
Okay.
But I did for a while work as a nanny tutor type person on an organic sustainable farm in Texas, where I taught 7 young girls from the ages of 8 to 18, all one family.
Your story already tracks. It already tracks, given that it is Texas.
Yes. And the long and short of it is, these wisdom books were the ones that they handed me to teach the girls. And I was like, no bueno, I don't like this. Can we go to a homeschool counseling session and find another Christian book that you guys are a little more okay with?
Yeah.
And I got them to swap to the Abeka books, which are not much better, but they do a little less.
They're
intense.
better. Yeah. Anything not wisdom booklet is better. Yeah.
So
dictionary is better than the wisdom booklet.
Of my understanding.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this stuff.
But I know about the wisdom books because I read them.
Right.
I'm not teaching this.
Because if you're not immersed in it, it's a different language.
Right.
It makes no sense to the outside person. If you were to just drop in right now, if we took Captain Dabble and we sat him down and we're like, here, take a look at these wisdom booklets, he would be like, the fuck?
Oh my God, no. I regret the fact that I burned them. Like,
I love that you did.
I am curious now.
We're gonna have a clapping moment that she burnt the wisdom book.
I took them out and I was just like, oh, these are good fire starters. I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, they're thick. Some of them are pretty
burn
thick.
This with the trash.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not teaching the 7-year-old how to read and also submit their virtue to the male of the family. Like, submit thine virtue to your father. And I'm just like, what?
Be reading it like I read my Greek Bible.
I don't know what the term virtue is.
With a parsing guide next to me and a magnifying glass. Like,
so
go ahead, John.
So to clarify real quick, to those who may not know in the chat, the wisdom books were the central curriculum for the entire homeschooling part of the cult. Bill Gothard himself thought you could teach everything you needed to know in life from the Sermon on the Mount. So Matthew 5, 6, and 7 were essentially like the entire focus of the wisdom books. Each wisdom book would take a small passage of the Sermon on the Mount and try to teach an entire like multifaceted course based on each part, starting all the way in Matthew 5, verse 1, all the way through the very last verse of 7. So he would try to teach, he would take, for example, seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain because of course it was King James. And he would try to take that and like apply it to lessons in medicine, in law, in science, just that very first verse. And, by just gish galloping like an entire verse, he tried to claim to parents that this was giving children a well-rounded education.
Yeah, it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable. And not only are they does he conjure people into believing that they're giving them a full education that a Christian child would need? It's a schoolhouse style education. So it doesn't matter what age your child is, they all learn from the same booklet. So if you have a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old, 18-year-old, they all read from the same booklet. So it's asinine. It's absolutely asinine. It doesn't education doesn't work like this.
No, it doesn't. And this is how I was able to get them out of this. Is their 7-year-old did not know their alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was
Sounds
like,
believe
our
that.
7-year-old is about to turn 8.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even know the alphabet, and she can't count.
Yeah.
Like she has no idea how to do this. And it's because the girls were already like 3 chapters in and doing whatever they're doing. And like she's just like, she would just ditch class and no one would stop her because she wasn't learning anything. She was just listening to gibberish.
Yeah.
She was, I called her my little monkey because she would just like, she would climb the fence and just be gone.
It was hard. I mean, and imagine a parent who has, especially being raised in this whole, Bill Gothard did not coin the whole like quiverful movement, but they definitely are kind of like they're bedfellows. But you have all of these families trying to have as many children as possible. So imagine having like 8, 10 children, all at varying ages, going, okay, today we're going to learn this thing in history that we all know is skewed anyway, but let's teach this thing in history, or let's teach you some science. And you're like, what do you do with the bottom half of your kids? Like for the 12 to 3-year-olds, what are you doing? Because the thing is with ATI, all of the kids have to be involved. Even if you are 3, like you're going to sit at the table and you're going to play with crayons, or you're going to do something within the room so that you are at least hearing what's being said. And I feel I've always felt so bad for these mothers who are trying to wrangle a bag of cats and then teach curriculum that is not interesting to a child or a teen at all. And because it's not linear education, it doesn't build upon itself.
Right.
It's all over the place. And I never realized, it took me until I was in my 40s to realize that that's why I'm not a good learner, because I struggled to understand anything that was presented to me through Bill's system. There was nothing that gave me a foundation of my knowledge as I grew in it. It was just, well, one day it's this, one day it's clouds, the next day it's mountains, the next day there's a beetle. Like it's so ADHD kind of.
Right.
That
so
how do I build?
So here's the crazy part is, hold on. Gish gallop. Yes. No refunds, no exchanges. No, so
I want a full refund.
Right? Because of his style and because they weren't ready to jump into like structured learning, I had to continue to do those subject-based learning things.
Right.
Or these lessons. So we would do a day about the weather, but I would go home, well, my home, which was my cabin on property. I would go to the office there and I would use their, limited internet access that was absolutely viewed by the father who had access to everything. And I would pick out different lessons that I could just kind of sneak away from the internet in science and print off these little sheets for the different levels. And all the girls, this is what threw me off. First off, they were all women. Every single one of these kids were born from this pair, and they were all women, all of them. And the fact that these books were constantly degrading to women was like a massive
constantly. Yeah.
By the time I left, the mother was all about feminism.
Amazing. I mean, that's amazing,
to be
able to infiltrate that.
Like, the man is in charge.
Yeah.
But we guide them. that was
Let me tell you though, like
we under God know
I
how
feel
to
like
guide the men.
if there are Christians in the house, like plug your ears right now because you're not going to like this. But women learn through all of this environment how to manipulate.
Yes.
It's not about how to be submissive. Like, sure, we're submissive, but like, let me tell you, any woman that you have in your life that is this like Christian underling, trust and believe she knows how to manipulate the shit out of you because they're like we are not just like little, submissive domicile homemaking bakers. Like we still have desires, we still have things that even if our boundaries are very small, we still want a little bit more. Like I learned how to be a master manipulator through living this life.
Oh my God. The girls
know.
knew how to manipulate me when I came in.
Yeah.
They knew how to
exactly
talk me out of doing certain things. And
Like the strictest parents create the sneakiest children.
Yes.
right, exactly.
Yes.
So I came in and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah.
oh, this isn't gonna work. We're gonna mess with this. This system it's not gonna fly.
Exactly.
So aside from education,
Mhm.
yeah,
there's so much to talk about.
There's a ton.
What else is like his they had a courting courtship what's the word I'm thinking of?
Courtship.
Arranged marriage.
Arranged marriage.
Right. which they don't call it that.
It is.
They don't. ATI doesn't. And IBLP, he doesn't call it arranged marriage. It's courtship. It's godly courtship. Let me be. I feel like it all starts to come back to me when I start talking about this shit. It's the right path to godly courtship. Which
it's partnering. It's the life partners.
Yes, your life partner. Yeah, exactly. Which a lot of people
that was very heavy on this. Like
yes,
the church tried to adapt a lot of it.
Did your church pull in from Bill? Like, did they do the basic seminar or something?
I don't know who. I can't remember the guy's name now.
Jonathan Limbaugh.
Maybe.
That name. Yeah.
That might be it.
Jonathan Limbaugh or Josh Harris, perhaps. It would be one of those.
I don't feel like Josh Harris. I mean, for maybe a lot of churches, but the Institute was not really like.
Yeah, not for the Institute.
Yeah.
Now, the Institute did pull from Limbaugh a little bit in the beginning, but Limbaugh went off and did his own thing.
Yeah,
but they taught like if like your daughter is not mature or spiritually wise enough to know who a suitable partner is, but your father is. That's why they really say like the father holds the key to his daughter's virginity, and then when he picks,
it's not only that though.
He gives the man the key, like it's some fucking.
This is where it never made sense.
Trophy you earn.
It's that the daughter isn't mature enough to find a life partner. However, men still don't have the same maturity level as women. They have to be older in order to match the maturity level of women.
Yeah.
So that's why there's always an older man and a younger daughter.
Yeah.
Like
it's a lot of things. It's like, speaking as a daughter raised in this shit, I will tell you right away, it happens very early. This programming within the girls. I was 12 or 13 years old when I was given my first purity ring. And basically that was a promise between my father and I that I would only look to him for that special man in my life, that if there was anyone that piqued my interest, that I would come to him and I would tell him who that person was and that I was struggling with my thoughts or my emotions or whatever, right? I'm 12. Like, I'd kind of like to be a kid a little bit longer where I don't know that
this, like, I don't know,
boys are a thing.
Grooming, maybe?
Yes.
Of course it is. Of course it is. It's also, again, we come back to submission. It's about keeping us indoctrinated with a certain understanding, keeping us isolated from anyone who can possibly infiltrate us and tell us something different, and then giving us a full set of rules by which we have to comply. Then you get a ring so you feel special. Your daddy takes you out to dinner, or you have, like, I don't know, some of the more secular, I didn't have that because, again, we're super fundy. So
I got to take
anything of enjoyment and fun is definitely like hampered in this one. No. But it was uncomfortable. My father is my stepfather. So I'm also like, I don't have a relationship with this person really. And so here I'm being given this like ring of like promise that he has my heart. He's giving me a ring. For that ring, I'm what do I know at 12? I don't know anything about sex. So it's like, I'm giving him my heart as he gives me just like a ring. So then I have this on my hand all the time. And I tell you, it constantly reminded me like, oh, am I I was talking to a boy. Does that mean I like him? Like, it made me paranoid. And I was a tomboy as a kid, and I loved playing soccer and roller hockey and volleyball. I was always in it with the boys. And then all of a sudden one day it was like, foop, just all of that went, and I could no longer. And it's basically because I was starting to develop. And then other things started to change. All my pants were taken away, my spaghetti strap, tank tops, whatever I was wearing, all of it gone. It was like overnight. Here I was wearing long ass skirts and long. So I have to say this first. The Duggars have it really easy now. I feel like they get to wear shorter skirts. They get to wear t-shirts. Like, that was not a thing.
The 4-finger rule when it comes
Yeah,
to
that was not a thing in my life. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was skirts down to your ankles, like Woolworth and Eddie Bauer. Thanks, because you kept me clothed. But, like the big bibbed, lacy, stupid collared, Peter Pan collared, long shirts and blouses and things like that. And nothing could be huggy. Nothing could show anything on your body. You could not. So I was dressed in tents and, tenty outfits. So you've got that. And then as I started to get a little bit older, of course, I'm kind of interested in boys, but what are you going to say to your dad? Hi, I'm struggling at 16 because I kind of like this kid at church. Like, my dad could sense it out so fast.
Tingle.
He could, but I didn't even know that. Like, I'm telling you, this type of culture, I'm not taught what sex is. No. I'm not taught what my body is supposed to do or its responses. So I don't even know. I know nothing. I knew nothing about anything for the longest time. Meanwhile, my parents are acting like boys are literally going to just like jump on me in 8 seconds if I'm ever alone, which maybe it was true, but they didn't prepare me. They just kept me in the dark, and then made me always feel bad.
Live in fear.
Yes, and always made me feel ashamed. Not to be around them. Exactly, because I was sitting here, creating attention, not on purpose, because you don't, right? But you're in a youth group or whatever, and all of a sudden a boy is showing attention, and my dad's just like, you can't be around that boy anymore. And I'm like, well, how? When we go to church, he's there. And then he would try to talk to me. And then I'm like running from him. No, don't talk to me. I'm going to be impure and God needs my purity. Like, it's just.
I can only imagine a Muppet like interpretation of this.
Yeah. It's just, it was really hard, and it puts like such a clusterfuck on you when you do actually start trying to get into a relationship with an individual.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. Can we talk about the whole, even like when you were like an adult and actually in a relationship or something, and like someone walks in the room that you don't necessarily know, or it's an authority. Did you guys ever like just bounce away from each other?
We had to. Like, if we weren't married.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Even if you're doing nothing wrong, you will just take a couple steps back just to prove that you were far enough apart.
It's a perpetual guilty thing. Like, even to this day, if I am flirting with someone and someone walks in, specifically if it's my mother or like a family member, I like flinch.
Yeah.
I'm not even near a person and I flinch.
Right.
Yeah. So like another thing about this courtship idea too, and this is where I kind of want to like briefly go over. If you've ever seen that diagram that people post on social media of like that multi-tiered umbrella showing, God's plan for the family, where it shows Christ as the top level of the umbrella, then, the husband, and then the wife, and then the kids, and all that sort of thing. First of all, shitty umbrella design. Second of all, that was actually an IBLP invention. Like, they came up with that in the cult proper. Yes. It was the umbrella of authority, we called it. We actually had a song for it as children.
Can you sing it?
I
just wanted to know if you still knew it. I was just curious.
When the sky grows dark and the thunder roars, when the strong winds blow and the cloud bursts forth, I know I'm safe as I can be when I'm under the umbrella that places over me. Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. That was a whole it was basically North Korea propaganda. So
it is. It's very easy. We could sing the Smile song. Let's not. I don't want to traumatize myself again. That was
I didn't actually think you guys would remember it, but you did.
Yeah, we recently kind of like together, like
We
went
went
back and
down
we're
a
like,
rabbit hole.
how many songs do we remember? We remembered a lot. But
Yeah.
the point I'm making with that is, though, everything was under the auspices of this authority. So
Yeah.
even as, a cis male in this, and by the way, I always preface this by saying this entire cult was designed to oppress women. Women always inherently had it worse. I want to be very clear on that. That being said, even for a cis male being raised in this, we were also taught that we had to we never approached like women directly if we were interested, like young women or teenagers, anybody we wanted to court. We would have to approach her father or the assigned male that was her authority.
Holy shit, yeah, we were talking about the same guy.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we would ask them if it was okay to pursue that particular person. Courtships would typically last, I've seen them last as little as 2 months. And
years.
the people or and sometimes years.
Yeah.
But I know a couple, like especially high profile families, they were trying to get the kids together for like, internal political alliance. But because it was literally like Game of Thrones arranged marriage.
Yeah.
Like certain families would want to get their kids together in order to achieve a higher station in this cult. And like, even as a guy, the couple of times I did approach people in a courtship situation, it was like a 2 or 3 hour grilling session from the dad with like really intrusive questions, that were frankly none of their business. And keep in mind, I didn't start pursuing this till I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
So I was already a grown ass man with my own house and my own job and everything. And, it was this whole like, well, who are you accountable to? Who's your authority? All that sort of thing. I'm like, me.
Isn't that how you were raised, to be the head of your home?
Basically.
Just like me.
but you always had to submit to a particular authority. And as a bonus, the unspoken top tier of that umbrella structure was Bill Gothard himself. If he didn't approve it, everything was off. Didn't matter what the parents said.
Well, the fun jiggity about my life is I actually went through courtship. That's how I got married. I am 22 years later still married to that same person, but I know that it's because we actually cared about each other, and we knew that ahead of time. Like we had sort of figured it out ourselves. I was working at headquarters at the time. We'll get into it later, but when he decided that he was going to start talking to my dad, I didn't know at the time that he was, but I knew that we loved each other. And so then he started writing my father, because they didn't live in the same state. So he was writing my dad. This is back when email was not really a big thing yet, because I'm old. And so they would have to wait, 7 days with snail mail to go back and forth with each other. And after about 2 months, my dad sat me down and was like, so there's this guy from headquarters who's interested in courting you. And I'm like, well, duh, I know who it is. And he was like, oh, this is his name. What do you think? And he had me read a letter.
Who?
Right. Oh my God, I don't know that man. That's so new. Oh my gosh, I feel so vulnerable.
Daddy, I haven't anything.
Well, he basically was like, well, what do you think of this letter? And he had me read one of the letters that Bryce had written him. And I'm like, he sounds great to me. Like, I'll take it. Sounds good. And my dad's like, well, I told him no. Yeah, no, seriously, I'm telling you, my dad was like a fucking torture device. And I basically I remember walking, it was like a Barnes and Nobles or something. I remember walking out and slamming the door. And back then you had to wait for the man to open your car door, which I've always loathed. Like, I have arms and I can open fucking doors myself. And I had to stand by the car while I waited for him to come out and open the door for me and put me back in the car. And we drove home in silence. I was so livid. It took him like another month to finally like cave in finally. I think my mom's manipulation was a part of the party. But anyway, here we are. But Bill wrote a letter to my husband to let him know that I was not ready to get married, that I had many single years of service for the Lord ahead of me, and that I was not mature enough or ready enough, and that he had already put himself as my spiritual leader. And so he felt that I was not spiritually sound enough to be able to get
decided you're in charge of you. Just
Well, me getting to headquarters is quite the nightmare story. So yeah, I was there for 3 years, and he felt that he had control of me and authority over me spiritually because of my family dynamic and because of me being at headquarters.
Okay. You wanted to get into that later though, so we don't have to do anymore now.
Yeah. Well, you can ask questions. I was just saying, like, if we want to keep talking about like certain things, I don't want to derail it.
Okay.
Oh
gotcha.
no, I want to start with the headquarters thing now. Like ooh.
Chad's like over here going hee hee hee.
Okay. So first off, did you have to interview with him before you got to headquarters?
Oh no, I was at when we were just talking about that little umbrella song, I actually started out, obviously I'm indoctrinated for years and years and years, 10 years or whatever, right? In this cult environment. We learn all these songs. Then Bill Gothard started putting children's institutes alongside of the basic and advanced seminars. So it's like children's church for the kids when the parents are at church. So while they're in the seminars, we're teaching them adjacently a character quality per night with an animal and a song and blah, blah, blah. So once you become, I don't know, what is it, 15, 16? I think you had to be legal to travel. So I think it was like 16 years old was the minimum, somewhere in there, to be able to be a teacher for these children's institutes. I had nothing else going on in my life except to do these things within the institute. Like it was my only focus, because what are hopes and dreams? We don't know those. It's basically someday I'm being groomed so that someday I get married and have kids and rinse and repeat this cycle. But for now, I'm an ambitious kind of unfocused kid, and I just want something to do and feel like I have purpose. And because that's all about Bill's whole thing is creating a new life purpose, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's teach these kids. Yeah, why not? Let's continue to indoctrinate more children. Yay. Yeah. So I went on with that cycle, and I was actually at a seminar. We lived in Florida. My mom drove us to a seminar in Atlanta because my brother and I were pretty close in age. We became a team to teach. So he was like my assistant on these little teams for the kids, and you get like 15 kids per person and whatever. But we stayed in a hotel, and the first morning we come downstairs. My parents are gone. They dropped us off. They trusted us. Here we are. I'm like 18 years old. My brother's 16, and we're sitting in the breakfast room. And there's tons of kids where it's a sea of navy blue bottoms and white blouses and jackets and whatever. It looks like a Mormon convention. And in walks Bill himself. And I didn't know he was staying at the DoubleTree or like whatever it was. Like I thought, oh, this man must stay at these big fabulous hotels. And instead he's here with all of us at the DoubleTree. And he literally walks over, or he has his assistant come over to me. He caught eyes with me at one point, and I was like, Bill Gothard's not really looking over here, is he? And he was. And he sent an assistant over and said that Bill would like for me to meet him after the seminar tonight. Just come down to the stage in this huge auditorium, come down to the right side of the stage, and you're going to spend the evening with Bill. And I'm like, okay. He's the fearless leader. He's he's everything to us. We don't know. I don't know any different. I'm like, how this is like the president of everything is wanting me to meet him. This is okay. So I go about my day. My brother's just in awe, like, oh my gosh, Bill Gothard wants to like meet you. This is amazing. And I'm like, I know, but why? I'm like, he must know all the bad things I've ever done in my whole life, and I'm in trouble or something. So we go through the seminar. I go downstairs. I just stand there by the front of the stage, and someone's like, "Oh, what do you do? Do you need help?" And I'm like, "I'm just waiting for Mr. Gothard." And like, "Oh, okay, come stand over here." Like it was just a normal thing. And then the assistant comes and finds me, and off we go. And we get in his creepy van, which I start to know way too often after this. But we take the van over, and I basically help the women make a meal. I was just kind of like, oh, go help the ladies. And I'm like helping the women in the kitchen, making the dinner. And then we all sit and eat dinner at this little office. And then he's like, oh, come on into the office, Lindsay. So I go into the office, and I can't not have a voice when I talk.
No, I fucking love it. Keep going.
I love it.
Keep going.
Man has a voice in my head. But basically he was just like, well, come on in, Lindsay. so when I go, and right. So it's him, his assistant, who's a male, and myself. And we're sitting in this it's pretty dark room. He's got like a dark, a burgundy leather chair, like one of those big old, the 90s, like this big old office man chair. Yeah, and this big oak desk. You're just like, oh my God, I roll now.
You didn't have one of these Wave Fucker 3000s?
Oh, hell no. He was very Trumpy, actually. Just like the tacky, burgundy, leathery moment going on. All of his materials behind him on the shelf. But he was just like, so Lindsay, tell me your story. And I prattle out all this stuff, and he caught on to the certain things of like, I don't know my birth father. I live with my stepfather. And he's like, oh, so you're fatherless. And I'm like, what? That's actually, I have two actually. I've just never met one of them. That's how I'm physically here. And then the second one is a stepdad that I've known since I was like a year and a half old. So I think I have one. But he's like, oh, God will be the father to the fatherless. And I'm like, why is he fixating on this fatherless shit?
Because he wants to know if you have daddy issues.
Which I did. So lucky him. And then I told him I was courting. Well, I wasn't in courtship, but there was a guy back in Florida. Again, I'm 18 years old, but he's 35 and he wanted to court me. He'd been trying to court me for a year now. I wasn't really into that. And so Bill's like, oh, well, you're going to have to call him this week. You're just going to have to call him and end that whole thing. And I was like, end it. I didn't start it. Like, when am I gonna, I'm not the one going, can't wait to marry a 35-year-old. Like, I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So he was like, well, what do you think about going to headquarters? I would love to have you come up to headquarters. And again, you just have to imagine someone who doesn't have a very big world or a lot of opportunity at all. And the headquarters literally are like shining castle on a hill. Like, get me out of here. My parents wouldn't let me go on the mission trips to Romania and Taiwan and all these like Russia, all these places I just wanted to go. I wanted to do things. And instead I'm like, learn how to bake and sew. So I was like, okay, you want to take me to headquarters? Awesome. It's 10 o'clock at night. I probably shouldn't call my parents right now. And he's like, well, we'll call them tomorrow. But you need to, before we call them, you have to call this guy that wants to court me and you need to release him. And I'm like, again, I didn't do anything. Like, he's the dude that my dad for a year has said no. So anyway, story short, I basically, a couple days go by. Every night Bill wants me back at his office. Every night that week, I was sitting in Bill's office with a notebook, my Bible, and waiting for like whatever the fuck was supposed to happen. And then he would just dictate stuff to his assistant, or I'd go help the women in the kitchen. Like, I was pointless to being there. And I didn't know it at the time. I was just at the ready to serve God and Bill, and which is what I'm trained for, right? So at the very end of the week, I finally got up enough guts to call this guy and just be like, so I'm sorry to let you know, but like the Lord is leading me in a different direction and I'm going to be going to headquarters for this ministry. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, broke his heart probably by that was not meant to be, but it should never have happened in the first place. But basically Bill was like, okay, let's call your parents. And he called up my mom and dad. My mom and dad did not know yet. I didn't know how to tell them because I knew they were going to say no. Like, if I bring it up to them, they're just going to be like, no, you can't go.
But if Bill
calls, then maybe.
Absolutely let it go.
Oh, they fawned. They like stumbled over themselves. Like, oh, Mr. Gothard, absolutely.
I love how you're like clutching your chest.
So honored. Well, I'm sure it's like how my mom's so dramatic, but I'm just like, we'd be so honored. That is such, my dad's just like,
thank you for choosing our offspring,
our
to please
godly,
you.
not godly daughter. Like, I was a struggled child for them. They were always frustrated with me, but that's literally how. And then I went straight from Atlanta to Indianapolis, where he has a counseling seminar. It just so happened to coincide with me going from Atlanta to headquarters in Chicago. And he was like, I'm going to have you stop and take this counseling course for 2 weeks. And then you'll be prepared to go to headquarters. So I travel with 3 other girls, mind you. 3 other girls he picked up at this seminar. And off we went up to the counseling seminar, got that under my belt. It was the same material I've been raised with my whole life. It wasn't anything I didn't already know. And then off I go to headquarters, and I'm immediately under his eye. It's very Handmaid's Tale, but it's quite literal. Under his eye. Mm-hmm. Yeah, always.
Along with a bunch of other women, I'm sure. A bunch of other young girls.
Yeah, I was not alone. There were, and I think for a while I thought I was. I thought that I was the onlyest, because he does such a good job of kind of like cherry picking it out. And it wasn't that I felt like I was special, because immediately all the girls hated me. Immediately,
I was going to ask.
People stayed away from me.
Jealousy factor.
It's this like, they call it like the Gothard girls. Yeah, right. No, Gothard girls. Oh, you're one of Gothard's girls. And I'm like, we're all here. Are we not all Gothard people? They're like, no, Gothard girls. And it's the ones that he brings up from seminars. Mm-hmm. And I learned
every time
over 3 years that he does it at every seminar. He will find a way. And I became a house mom at one point there. And I had people like myself coming on in. I'm like, here's
Just
your
bringing
bedroom.
bringing
And I
more
tried to
more.
be as kind to them as I could because I'm like, girl, I know what you're about to go through. You know, I know this
No,
man
I
is never
was
going to
gonna
leave you
say
alone
the
until you fucking
jealousy
leave this
factor is
place.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like the amount of criticism and judgment that goes through women's minds at each
Yeah.
other within these
Oh, it's
weird
bad.
circles is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I got
Like-
infractions for so many things. You know, we have to wear these like long skirts. Again, back in the day, it was down to
we
the
saw your
ankle.
ankle, so
It's
that's not
different
appropriate
now.
for anything wrong.
Yeah, it's different now. You're walking around like a little mermaid if you don't have enough, you know, movement on that skirt. And we would have like little kick pleats in the back and stuff like that. And I had little buttons, and one time one button came unbuttoned at the very bottom. And I was sat down with like the head woman at headquarters about how immodest I was. And I'm like, dude, seriously, if my ankles are causing, again, didn't know what sex was at all. But I'm like, if my ankles are a problem, I think we have bigger problems. I don't know why. My ankles and my clavicles and my wrist bones are a problem. Like, why? It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense, somebody. Anyway.
I was just
yeah.
really curious. So I don't really know much about Bill. I know very, very little as far as the cult itself. I just knew about
I don't either.
Kind of got thrown at me like day one when I went to work there and was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And I'm going to live here. Like we're changing some things. But yeah. So Bill was married, right?
He's never been married. He's never had children. And yet he spouts so much marital advice and so much raising of children and godly children. It's really just I have so many thoughts. I feel like I need to be careful. But like there's an aspect to it that almost feels like he just feels hi, Artemis. Like he just feels like he believes, and I do feel this for myself, that he believes he's doing God's work. I really believe that he thinks that he has this inspired spirit from God with him, that what he teaches for marriage, what he teaches for divorce, what he teaches for RAPE, what he teaches for like all of these things that happen along the journey, having kids, whatever, he believes the shit he's selling. And I think that's why it's so dangerous, because he believes it. Exactly.
Yeah.
But on top of that,
selling something, he's not. Yeah, it's not a sales pitch to him. This is actually how life should be.
And yet he's also a good salesman. So yeah.
But no,
that's what I was going to say. Like one of the things that Bill is more than anything else, you know, in addition to being a complete believer in his own supply, is is that he is a salesman. He does genuinely remember the intimate details about people. He does genuinely.
Evangelical or tele-evangelical is some of the best salesmen you'll ever meet.
And he was always pitching a new angle. Like, the homeschooling was the biggest part of it, yes, but he was always looking for different ways to expand the ministry. So, for example, when the Iron Curtain came down, he immediately started sending people over to Moscow. He had this grand plan at one point to try to take over all the orphanages in Russia, according to him. Because he was allowed to bring the system into a couple of Russian orphanages. He actually did meet with Boris Yeltsin at the time to make that happen.
There was this 90s. It was like mid 90s. There was a big boost for a bunch of
Christians adopting Russians.
Yes.
And he was part of that too.
He was a big part of it.
Boost to adopt as many Russians as you can.
Yeah, huge part of it.
Yeah, I remember there was a family. So the Mormons that I used to babysit when I was a kid, which was a family of 12. Now it's a family of 16. They have stopped at this point, and now their two oldest now have 3.
Bless that mother's nethers.
But that mother loved being pregnant. Like, she loved being pregnant. She's very sad she can't have kids anymore. But I remember their grandfather, the dad's dad, going over to Russia and bringing back 5 kids. all Russian kids.
Just not surprised. Yeah.
And I'm just like, It's
Yeah.
like, and suddenly I went from like babysitting 12 kids to like having one Russian guy that's like my age.
It's
and
quite
helping-
literally a savior complex. It's
Mhm.
gross. You
Mhm.
know, oh look,
Yeah.
you're a country that we don't really like anyway, but we're gonna save all your children and make them Christians and bring them to America.
Right, because Christian Orthodox isn't a thing. Anyway, or sorry, not Christian Orthodox, but Russian Orthodox isn't
Right.
by any means. No, not at all. No, I remember like from 1995 to like 2002, there was like a big boost in how many Russian babies and Russian teenagers were brought over and converted.
I'm sure they're having a fun time deconstructing their life right now.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's
But they're
convenient about
citizens.
the Russian children, though, is they all stacked inside of each other, so they all came over in one.
Yes.
So you just pop one out. There's no one.
You've got
Just
14, 15 of
travel,
them. It's perfect for the
We're-
schoolhouse
we're not-
education too.
We're not terrible people. No.
I'm talking about Russian nesting dolls for anyone in the chat who's confused right now.
Anyway, anyone who's watching and doesn't understand what Russian hatch dolls are, that's like the
Yeah.
But that was Bill. Like, if an opportunity availed itself and if it fit with his predetermined notions, he would go for it. At one point, he was trying to prove the efficacy of this thing called sonic bloom, where he believed that you could play classical music at plants to make them grow better, because he was anti-rock music, as he put it. Anything with an audible beat. Yeah.
So
exactly.
can I?
Oh yeah,
can I
he was
chime in on this?
very he was
Can I-
very
can I chime in?
Yeah.
So it turns out,
Don't take 20 minutes, Matt, because I know you. You can talk about this for an
Turns out-
hour.
due to multiple
short,
sound
please.
studies in greenhouses, that plants love heavy metal.
Yep.
I'll bet the hell they do, man. They got a hard life with that soil and all that shit,
Yeah, it turns out his
It's
experiments
true.
failed, by the way.
Experiments failed because even.
I thrive on rock
because
music, by the way.
plants work, classical
Oh,
music
same.
will make babies smarter.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's some theory to that.
There is some theory to that.
But that's
There's-
different.
But,
Like
well, again, that's human versus plants.
exactly. And it's also classical music. It's not Christian hymns.
Not Christian hippie music.
Yeah.
Not kumbaya.
But Bill believed
Galilee
he just would grab these wacky ideas and then make them so hardcore belief systems, even with this rock music stuff. Like it all was because it originated with the African beat.
Mhm.
And when the Africans beat on their drums,
What?
they were bringing up the devil. No, I'm dead serious.
This is
That's
And
what
of
we were
course,
taught.
here I am, a white kid in America going, the
Yeah, you
black
don't know any better.
person's devil beat. And then you hear any beat and you
Fucking
instantly think to like,
demons.
oh my gosh, it's because
With their black
the
people
Africans
drums.
yes.
We were
How
trained.
do you know not to make those connections? It's literally the connections that are being handed to you.
We were trained if we
Yeah.
went in a restaurant or any business that was playing any music with an audible beat to please ask the manager to turn it down or to change it, because we were children of God and we couldn't listen to that.
You had to make a wise appeal to your
Yes.
authority, and the owner of the restaurant was the authority. So you would say, "Can I please speak with your manager?" My parents would make me do this all the time, by the way. This
God,
is
that's
not just
so
me making it up.
cringe.
If I walked into a Pizza Hut and I'm 14 years old and there's, I don't know, some
Kids
80s
Bop
Bon
playing
Jovi
on the
playing on the
radio.
freaking, jukebox, I'd have to ask the man, can I speak with manager? My dad would never do it. He would make us kids do it, which these days I'm like, coward. But I would walk up to that
Yeah.
counter and I'd be like, "Hi, can I speak with your manager?" And they would come out and be like, "Oh my God, you're kind of a big guy." Okay. I'm like, "Hi, my name is Lindsay and I've given my life to the Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm sorry, but I can't listen to this bad music. Would you mind turning it off while I'm
God.
here?"
Oh, cringy.
I'm 14, maybe 12. My
Hurts.
brothers were younger. So we'd walk into, you name it, Walmart.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Man, we went there like twice.
Oh, okay.
Same.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I
Chuck E.
don't
For
know.
that reason.
The Chucky the cheese is evil.
Oh, well, I mean,
And
he
it
is
smells
demonic,
like
let's be
a
honest.
nursery and sweaty teen boy socks. So I don't want to ever go in one.
I love it.
Yes, you do.
I love it.
Same.
But yeah, you would have to give wise appeals for things. Even my parents would make us do that. if we wanted to go to the park or we wanted to spend the night with a friend, we would have to bundle in one of Bill Gothard's wise appeals, meaning you'd have to have a reason for why you would want to do it, share what you would do in replace of being allowed to do it, and blah, blah, blah. And then you basically say that you prayed to the Lord and the Lord said that this would be okay for you. Again,
Right. How often
master
do you, like-
manipulation. You learn how to manipulate to get what you want. You're not hearing from God. Come on.
No.
A
You
child-
say that you thought about it, and this, like, you, the what you do.
Child
while
does
you're
what the
praying,
fuck they want.
what you're doing while you're praying is you're thinking up the best way to vocalize your desires without pissing your parents off.
Yep.
So that they agree to what you want.
Absolutely.
I remember doing that.
Yeah. I mean, every kid does. And then you put it in this type of a construct and you become, like I said, master manipulators, not just, oh, I'm a sneaky kid.
I prayed on this pretty hard.
Yeah. You start to really feel your ability to
Lord laid
warp.
this on my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got it. Totally, Captain
No,
Deb.
I laid this at Christ's feet, and I can't tell you the relief I've felt since.
Or the scripture he gave me in Jeremiah 19:11.
Is this why
I don't know
so
what
many
that
of us
says,
ended up
but-
like theater kids and shit? Like, I'm starting to see a connection here.
Yeah,
right?
We were really, that being a theater kid after like deconstruct. Well, shit. I've been in theater since I was like 4, so I have to think back on that because like even when I was Methodist, I was in the theater.
I love how in the chat Kelly's like, if you play the rock music backwards, it's Satan speaking. So of course, we totally believe that.
We
We
did.
totally believe that as kids.
Yeah.
That if you went backwards on a record, Satan was coming into your house.
By the way, another thing that was demonic that always like blows people's mind when I tell them, and this was, pushed out, I forget by which IBLP preacher, because there was a whole network of these. Calvin and Hobbes was determined to be supremely demonic because
Yes.
Hobbes only appeared as a non-stuffed tiger when the
Yes.
parents weren't around. So therefore, Hobbes was clearly a demon circumventing the authority of the parents. Therefore, we weren't
His
allowed
invisible
to read
friend.
it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, an invisible friend is what they call that. My parents literally
when I
stapled
found this
paper
out-
over the comic and blacked it out with a Sharpie so I could read it.
I still think about that every time I see Calvin pissing on something on people's like cars and stuff. I
I'm gonna take
always
a
think
break.
back to that.
I was gonna say I found out about the Calvin and Hobbes thing when I was probably 22, 23, and I happened across a garage sale with like the full Calvin and Hobbes series, like all of the books. I bought them.
Same. I did the
I
same
bought
thing.
all of them. I bought all of them, and they are one of my prized possessions. Okay,
Totally.
I love them so much.
I love that someone also was like the OG Karen, like coming into a restaurant and giving your life to the Lord to stop the
Oh.
music. That is
Very cool.
amazing.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Famously, also Cabbage Patch dolls were considered to be demonic. We were not allowed to.
well-
do
Yes,
that.
and then the
that one's
Furbies
true.
right
That one's
after
true.
that.
You can't.
I can
Yeah,
go.
they blame
Hold on.
Right away
for
with
that one.
Furbies.
Hold on. This isn't a Bill Gothard book, but this is the book that really launched the 1,000 Ships, Turmoil in the Toy Box.
Oh my god,
By
and there's
Phil
a Cabbage
Phillips,
Patch doll right in the
who
middle of
by
the
well,
shit.
they're because trademark.
But they're off brand, but you can see
Which
the
is
Barbie
hysterical
and the
'cause they look
Cabbage
so
Patch and the
ridiculous. Look how-
superhero action figure.
Look how ridiculous they look because they
That
aren't.
could be a garbage pail kid. I'm just saying.
It's it's a dumpy kid is what it is. But yeah, basically this was a book also that parents were highly suggested to buy because even though Bill didn't sell it, he highly suggested this. And this guy never had he didn't have kids, by the way, when he wrote this book. He was literally just looking for something to call a ministry. And he thought, you know what? There's devil in our toys. And then off to the
Gothard took
races.
Yeah, Gothard took the Satanic Panic and he dialed it up to 11.
Oh yeah.
He recommended that people, whenever they would move into a new house, go room to room and cleanse the house by praying any evil spirits that have been there out of it.
Yep.
Like that was
So witchcraft, you
You
know.
want to know what's crazy about that is how well that caught on and is now in so many other like spiritual religions.
Mhm.
You know, saging your home. Is it any different? Just
Yeah.
saying. But yeah. What else you need, Captain Dadpool? I feel like you have so many questions.
I'm happy about this. I'm happy about it because like I just haven't been able to really. I I've never been able to talk to people about the fucking the wisdom books. I just didn't think anybody would ever bring those
Crazy.
up.
Yeah.
By the way, the crazy
having
thing
a
about
moment.
that. Go ahead.
What?
No, go ahead.
The crazy
Good
thing
point.
about the wisdom books, even though that
Yeah,
made up our
talk.
curriculum, even though that made up our curriculum, like everything that we were taught as our core education growing up, now ATI, for various reasons, has ended as a homeschooling curriculum, and they are now taking the wisdom books and selling them as just generic Bible study material.
They're in-home Bible study materials now.
So this whole thing that they touted to our parents for years would just teach us everything we needed to know to succeed in the world are now just like, oh, here's a Bible study thing you can buy for like $15.
That's our
It's
education.
insulting, is what
Our
it is.
education is what you now take once a week into, like, I don't know, eight families in a living room, and you read about shit.
Mhm.
That was my education, and now you're using it as a Bible study. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's proven it was all a scam in the first place.
What?
Well, I was
Yeah.
gonna say the books were like almost like $100 a piece too. Initially, they were expensive as fuck. Like,
Well, there was a registration fee, like, for
Right,
each family. So it was like, I think back in the day it might have been $450 or $500.
Something like that.
And I think you get 4. I'm pulling back from the resources in my brain, but I think you get like 4 wisdom booklets, and then, like, so if however many kids you have, if you had 12, well, they're going to be sharing, or you can buy additional ones. I don't remember how much they were, but and then that's a yearly renewal fee.
Yeah.
And from what I remember when my parents got out, I think it was almost $600 that they were paying per year for the information.
But with that money, like, if you had trouble using the wisdom books as your curriculum, you always had the resources of a trained counselor that could tell you how to homeschool your kids. Am I right, Lindsay?
I hate you.
like,
Yes.
call up and
There's
get
an
Lindsay
inside
as a
joke there.
speaker.
We're not privy to.
So here's the
that
fun
would be
part.
me.
You want to know something even more fun is that there was a you that showed up to their place, and their kids just
Family
weren't learning from
coordinator.
her.
The family
Yep.
coordinator is probably who showed up.
Yeah, and the kids
yeah.
just weren't grasping it. They weren't.
Yeah.
And so the way that I got hired by that family was quite literally, I was at a Barnes and Noble getting a book out of science section.
Interesting.
Right. I was
They're like,
in
"You are
the
clearly
the
qualified."
nature and science area. Like, I was already like scary as hell.
You're
like,
standing in the science aisle. You know more than we do.
apparently. And the wife just came up to me and she was just like, "You understand this stuff, right?" And I was just like,
Yeah.
Can you come help us make
So-
science?
I was like,
So
"Do you know
it-
how to speak science?" I was like, "Yeah," and it's like, to an extent. And she was just like, "Are you a teacher?" And I was just like, "No, I
Cool,
I just
you'll do.
graduated
We don't
school."
like teachers anyway. That's awesome.
Right.
Come
No, I was
along.
like, I'm not a teacher. I just graduated school. And she's like, "Well, what with what?" And I was like, "Geology." And she's like, "That's the study of the earth, isn't it?" And I was like,
Oh,
"Yeah."
ouch.
And she's like, "I would love to invite you to come to our home and have dinner sometime." I mean, like, just jumped straight into that. And then at the dinner, I got invited to move in,
And all of a sudden, she's with the Falwells.
and they found me at a very
Kidding.
delicate time in my life. So I jumped right in.
Carrie, what
sorry,
are
I
you doing in the
couldn't-
corner there?
I couldn't resist.
But that's a good point, Danny, and that's also why I wanted to highlight that part. Sorry about that, Lindsay. About the
No,
about the
I don't
counselor
mind
thing.
sharing it too. So go ahead
Yeah.
and I'll tell.
But the whole point was, like, we were trained, like, we were taught that we had such a superior training to anybody out there in public school or private school or what have you, that we could take on things with minimal training that we would suddenly be experts at. In reality, they were just getting, like, cheap labor out of, these kids that they basically, like in Lindsay's case, just pulled out of a seminar. And and they just basically put us in that position and told us to fend for ourselves while they reap the benefits of it. We barely saw a dime. Those who went to headquarters and everything, if they got paid,
did.
while they're
You
did,
got
but
paid.
You know
very
why?
few people did.
You want to know why I got paid?
What do you get paid?
I got paid because I was a Gothard girl.
Yep,
Ah!
that's true.
Hello. Perks. I'm sorry, that was really loud.
No, it's perfect.
My lens popped out, so I'm going to talk without my glasses. But what Chad is talking about is that there was a hotline. I worked in the ATI department once I finally settled into whatever space that the higher ups had to make for me because, you know, these stray cats that Bill kept bringing up to headquarters, I call them broken birds. I was a broken bird. I really was. I did not want to be at home because it was not a good place to be. And I'm like, you know what, whatever. Like Chad just said, like, fake it till you make it. You know, I don't need a lot because I've been pretty good at everything I've tried so far. And I know all the material and I know Bill inside, you know, I know his teachings inside out. But it took a little while. Like I worked in the kitchen for a little bit, and then they tried to have me like in shipping. It was just all like the grunt worky kind of stuff where they're like, well, let's see if she survives. Because looking back now, I'm sure they were like, Bill's going to bring in a different flavor of the month, and then she's going to be out of here. Well, he wasn't letting me go. So it was like, well, we better put her on payroll and find her a place to actually be. But I didn't know how to type. I didn't know how to be in an office. I'd never done that before. Obviously, I'm 18 years old and I was homeschooled. What the hell do I know about office life? And immediately I got dropped into the homeschooling department. So the whole time I was there for 3 years, I was basically, oh my God, this lens. I'm so over it. My lens keeps popping out of my glasses. I'm just going to be blind. But yeah, so basically they were like, we're just going to land her here. I learned how to type. I'm sure you guys probably remember remember the old monitors? They were like big chunky things. And there was some like weird typing program you had to like do all these little tests at. And I got really good at it really fast. And then like, okay, cool. Well, now you're the assistant to the person who's in charge of this department. It was like overnight. All of a sudden, here I am just like doing these things.
Because you're younger, so you grabbed onto it faster.
Yeah. And I played piano, so I feel like I had dexterity. Like I understood like, you know, muscle memory. But anyway, I get in there and it has to be like a couple of months. And then I'm literally fielding calls from ATI mothers who were calling in like crying or just so overwhelmed and like, oh my God. And you can hear all the kids crying in the background and people, you know, everything's going maniac in their house. Just like, I just don't understand how to do the family reporting. This is just, I've really been crying out to the Lord, blah, blah, blah. And I have like my Bible and other resources thumb tabbed everywhere of like, oh, the mother in need. Okay. And I'd flip over to that and be like, oh, well, the Lord says, da, 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 and he will comfort you. And then I'm like, yeah, well, I don't have my glasses on, but yes. Yeah.
There's a bunch of dots on the books.
I'll put on my one lens and be like, hold on really quick. Oh, I see it. But yeah, so it was stuff like that. And I'm like, don't think it was lost on me. I always knew the whole time that I was doing this, that I didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Big red.
That what is a Bill really like their
guys named Bill really like their secretaries, huh?
It seems like all Bills have problems. But
just a bill, just a regular bill.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here on captain.
But I'm here counseling mothers, you know, and I don't know the first thing about being a mother. I'm still trying to be a kid, but now I've always been an adult. So I somehow feel empowered because that's what I've been given is empowerment to come into these situations.
Court the guy half the country away.
Why not?
So I have a question for you then, and this might just be a dig into yourself, but
Go
when these mothers would call crying and these people would call and need your help and you're 18 and you're at such a high station in this thing, did you think yourself holier? Like, did you ever get to this? No, you never got there.
The thing is,
never had a moment of like, wow, I am better than these people. No. Okay. I was just curious because I bet you some of the girls that you were around did though. I can actually, I know exactly who those girls are, but I think also I think a part of that behavior and that sort of like instinctual thing in you also comes from your belief system. Mm-hmm. I didn't believe. So I'm doing all of this stuff. Even when I became a Christian at the age of 10, I did it because my brother did it when he was 8 and I felt competitive. He got like baptized before me and I was like, oh my gosh, my younger brother. Yeah. So I'm just like, I can't, I had so much doubt about God existing on a whole because of the abuse at home and all the things that were going on for me that I just was like, if there's a God, he's a fucking nightmare and he clearly doesn't love me or care about me. And so when Bill sees me in this breakfast room, I'm like, oh,
am I actually godly? Does he see something in me? Like you're grasping for anything to give you validity about your life. And I'm 18 years old now going, is there anything to my life? And this man apparently, the heir apparent of, prophetism and Christianity, like here he is. So I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just going to go along for this ride and it gets me away from home. That's all I cared about. So then here I am in this system going, I'm just literally going to keep on doing. I want to be compassionate. I never was like, hey mom, like, or hey mother that I'm talking to, like, you really should go and meditate right now because the Lord is going to speak to you in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
It was more just like, I'm so sorry that this is happening. And if you just like flip over to thing, like if you just give this to the Lord and just supplicate with him and, talk to your kids, sit down with them. Like I would kind of interject whatever I thought I would have wanted as a kid. Like maybe they just need a little bit of your time.
Honestly,
yeah.
I feel like I did so many of the same things that you did, but like just with the family that I was living with.
Right. You just find ways to
I don't know anything about their religion. And here I am teaching their kids.
Exactly.
And like anytime I had an issue with anything in the books, I would tell them that it's like, I prayed on this a little bit and I think the Holy Spirit just it's really guiding me away from this particular subject. I just don't think that this is right at this time. And I used it. I fucking used it because that was the only way I could get their dad to approve of anything.
Manipulation. Right. I mean, it's
super fucked up. But
the only way to get around the hurdles.
So I guess this leads us into how did you get out?
Well, I kissed a boy and I liked it, and then I got in trouble.
Right.
What did you say, Deadpool? Sorry.
Did
I spoiler it?
The second half. No. I say we're in the second half of the show, so let's talk about how y'all got out and how you're coping with life since you got out.
Coping? Is that a thing?
Adjusting, maybe a better word.
Yeah, no, I'm teasing you. I mean, as far as headquarters, I know, poor little Chad. I want Chad to be able to talk too here.
Well, I'm sure Chad's way out was interesting. I think I've heard him tell me about his way out, but I really want to know yours because I don't know yours. And then we're going to focus on Chad. Quite
literally, I'll try to make it quick. But like quite literally, I actually realized what love was because I fell in love with somebody working at headquarters. He was 2 years older than I was. He was a programmer, and I thought I could program. What do I know? I'm homeschooled. But I was like, I want to learn how to program. I literally was I was hungry. I wanted to do shit. And I was so tired of being a fucking girl. You really do not know how badly I wished I had been born a boy for so many years because I just had like everything was just hampered on me and I knew what the end result was. I knew what my destiny was to be. It was to be married to some dude who probably might not like me or be nice to me. Who knew? And then I was going to have kids and I was going to have to just like play this whole game again. But from a different point of view. You have to call
an 18-year-old crying for help.
Right. And then me going, I know not to call you because hello, dumbass.
You're on the phone with your future self. And they're like, this is what you're going to be.
I know what happens here. Exactly.
He was like, hey, that desk that you're sitting at, do me a favor. Reach into the top right-hand drawer and lift up. There's a note that I left for myself years ago.
Exactly. The back left corner. Just Lindsay, get out. Run away. Run! But no, so this guy was brought into our department to redesign some of our programming that we had for data entry and stuff. And I was tasked to sit with him and show him how we ran things, which a blondie little dipsy ATI girl teaching a tech dude like how we data entry our stuff was bad. And then I didn't even know how to flirt, so my flirting was horrific. Like the things that I said to him, he tells me even to this day, he's like, it was so bad, but it was so cute at the same time. I'm not going to reveal what I said to him because it's so bad. But anyway, but I just said like silly shit. And then no, I'm not.
You know what it is.
Apparently not. But but at one point, like, I had to go home. I had some health problems. I had a blood clot, and I was sent home. The first time I had a blood clot, I stayed at headquarters, which only like endeared Bill more to me because, like, oh, girl in need. And so the second one, I went home, and in that time that I was home for about 6 weeks, I realized I really, really liked this guy. And but I like him. Does he like me? I don't know. And then when I got back to headquarters, it was pretty obvious. Like, I could tell. I'm like, okay, there's something here, even though I've never really like super flirted with people. We like each other, and we end up sneaking out. We have a kiss. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm telling you, to this day, I literally at one point thought, okay, God does exist because I just got totally fucked over. We have a kiss. We instantly go, we should not be doing this at headquarters. Like, this is the no territory. We shouldn't even be like poking each other's shoulders right now. And so we were like, we have to stop this. Like, because even though I didn't know what the things were to do with the things, I was feeling bothered. So I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening. We go back to our separate places. We call each other. He's in some house. I'm in my house on the property with, Bill Gothard's property. And we call each other and we were like, that was such a great kiss. Oh, I know. I really enjoyed it too. Da, da, da. And then it was like, we have to stop this. Like, this is not good. I don't know where it could go, but it's bad. And apparently in this conversation where we calm ourselves down and we're just going to pretend that this didn't happen, or we're going to be mature people. Somehow, some way, someone in my husband's like house where he lived had another line, or somehow he had a cordless phone. And I think it just, like, back then in the day, like, they were two separate phone lines. They were not the same. It wasn't a party line. So he somehow heard part of our conversation. And because it's all about, integrity and the intention of good and evil or whatever, he basically that night went to my soon-to-be husband, knocked on his door at like 3 a.m, was like, "Hi, I just heard this conversation between you and Lindsay. And if you don't tell Bill Gothard in the next 24 hours, I'm going to tell him myself." So then my husband calls, well, he's not my husband, but at this point he calls me back and he's just like, "So this just happened." And I was like, "What?" Why? Like, we are dead. Like, you're not dead. I'm dead. I'm going home. My life is over. I'm going to go die now. I might as well just wander away. And the next day we had to go, and he told Bill Gothard. I went and told the head of HR, who my family knew growing up because he was a military guy and my dad was military. So we were stationed on the same bases. So I basically had to tell someone who knew me what I had done. And this is, I mean, literally, even just saying this to you guys, I'm like, it
brings it back.
The panic about it is more rooted in the fact that purity culture is so precious. It's like, it's so set on this, like, you guard it with everything. And the second that someone even thinks, like, yeah, like a kiss is you fucked someone and now you're pregnant. Like, that is a kiss within purity culture. And even just, I think it's so weird that I'm feeling so like, I can't breathe, because it's just like it was so asinine. Like, I remember sitting in my room after all of this happened, and I'm like, it's not like we fucked on the front lawn, even though I didn't know what fucking was. I knew the word, but I'm like, it's not like we fucked on the front lawn, like we were naked. And yet it was. And I was sent away. So my husband was sent away. He wasn't my husband at the time, but he was sent away very quickly. Which we know because I was a Gothard girl. Bill wanted to keep me there. Right. And then several months later, I was sent to Oklahoma City Training Center. And that was like where the naughty girls go, the Oklahoma City Training Center. And I was basically had the scarlet letter on me, if you will. And I was treated pretty horribly there for 5 months. I could not leave the property. I was under the watchful eye of every Tom, Dick, and Harry in that place. And I found out within like 2 or 3 months of being there that it was actually shared within the training center that I had actually slept with this guy. So here I thought that I knew that I'd kissed somebody,
right.
and I was like, wow, everybody is massively like really ostracizing me and just shunning me here. And I don't understand. And this is where my ego probably came in, where I'm like, I'm from headquarters. Like, why is it like usually when someone from headquarters comes around, everyone's like, oh my God, you were at headquarters. Oh, mighty. And I was like, they're just treating me like I am a
You're still
leper.
18 at this point?
No, I'm 21 now.
That's
And
all
even
right.
then, I'm still like so naive. It's
It was
ridiculous.
asked in the
But
chat. I know you can't
oh,
see.
okay. Sorry. I don't have my glasses on. Y'all have to keep up with me for me. But yeah, so I was 21 at this point. My dad totally acquiesced as well to me being sent there. He was fine with it. Yeah, send her on. She deserves it. She kissed a boy. There we go.
Wow.
So my parents were having a really hard time back at home. I would call crying because I just please bring me home. I don't ever want to be involved in anything IBLP ever again. But they listen in on your conversations at the OTC. And so I could hear them clicking. I could hear the office noise. And I'm just like, I can't even tell them what's going on and what's wrong. And I also just didn't trust my parents either, because they, after one kiss, I'm sure they believed that it was probably more than that too, because who's going to believe a young woman over Bill Gothard and all these people? And I probably needed my spirit to be submitted anyway, because I'm such a willful, rebellious person, which I am willful. So I will take that badge and own it. But I had to fake my like testimony, because that was the other thing that they made you do if you were naughty and you went somewhere.
Because they thought that you slept with someone, you slept with them.
Yeah.
So your testimony was, I repent for whatever.
I obviously didn't say for sleeping with somebody, but I was just like, I've seen the error of my ways, and the Lord has just really shown me so much, and blah, blah, blah. Just anything to get me the fuck out of there and get me home. And the funny thing is, a year later, I was married. Yeah.
How did you find him again?
Because the internet was now a thing. Thank God there was the internet, but like AIM, AOL. AIM. It took me a while to message him when I finally got back home, because I was so scared. I didn't know, like, does one kiss hold up to all this shame? Does it? I don't know. Maybe like he was dragged through it too. You know, he was sent home immediately. And then anyway, so I remember that very first time that I logged in to message him being back home, and I was terrified. And then he messaged me very quickly. We had a conversation, but even I still have it. And it's so funny that you can see the timidness that we both have, because we just don't know. Like, you have two literal traumatized people who have been indoctrinated and alienated from normalcy, trying to even figure out, like, was that one moment that we had? Sorry. Yeah, was that moment that we had, like, was that something, or was it just, were we teenagers? Was it something that we had denied purity culture? Like, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but I just remember feeling like so confused, because something like that should not be. That questioning of someone loving you so purely, even for one moment, should never have to be something that you put through a set of 10 directives to find out if it's okay. You know, and thank God for my now husband, because he did not give up. He thought that this silly little girl from headquarters was worth it, and he started writing my dad, and I didn't know, but he started writing my dad, and that's when my dad's like, oh, read this letter, and then my dad's like, I told him no, and I'm like, what are you? Like, who birthed you? Like who dropped you on your head and didn't love you enough?
Oh,
you know,
I was gonna say, I don't know if it's consistent within all of you guys' religion, but like, as far as I was concerned, any of the girls, they were not considered adults or mature enough to understand or make decisions for themselves until they were
always. Yeah.
And so Imus has a note in here. It's like, at 21, you didn't just say no, I won't go. Like, you were a whole adult. You didn't know.
I imagine it's a lot like the military. Your superiors tell you to do something. You don't just say no, fuck off.
No.
You are conditioned.
If you were 30,
it's
IBLP had one of those too, by the way.
Yeah, alert.
Right? Like, if you were 30 and you still weren't married, as a woman, that's
now you're too old. Yeah, there's no your chain is yanked the whole time as a female. And I kind of got to a point in my deconstruction when I started really getting out of all this stuff, where I realized that I was a show pony for so many years of my life, especially with Bill Gothard. And then I was basically just put out to pasture at some point to be a broodmare. You know, at some point you've exhausted your young thoroughbred years, and now you're just like out over here. The only thing that's useful is your womb, and then you can just like take care of kids because yay, that's what you
Fucking
learned.
Weird.
Right.
Go ahead, Chad.
I don't understand
It's like
old men and
a
women to
talking
surround
about it.
themselves with young girls. I don't fucking get it.
They
It's
make themselves
gross
feel
Why is that so fucking common?
because
Anyway,
perverts
sorry.
rise in power. Well, I just think that he was emboldened. Nobody stopped him. I've
was
said this
treated
1,000
like a god.
times. There were so many adults in the room. And if you guys have seen The Village, the movie The Village, I swear, all of
Yes.
those adults that decided to go live on the fucking commune, for those in the chat, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it by now, though, it's your own fault. But, you know, for all of
And
those
my
adults that are
Shyamalan was
living...
dead the entire movie. Was it
For
directed
those
by
that are
M. Night
living
Shyamalan?
on...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Okay.
It's the only
Didn't
decent
remember.
movie outside of Sixth Sense that he made. But
I don't know. I like M. Night Shyamalan. I don't know why. I like all of his movies, but some of them just.
yeah. But all of the adults that chose to live on that commune made the choice to do so. All of the
Consciously,
children did
knowing.
not make that choice, but they were raised to believe completely false information. So I feel like it's literally ATI is like completely parallel with this. We didn't choose it. Our parents knew what we didn't have and what they chose to give us. I hold them highly responsible. Yes, Bill Gothard created all of this information, but parents chose it for their children and left us in the fucking dark about the entirety of the world. So I left, I got married, I'm 22 years old now. Dude, my life education started at 22. Me trying to survive in the real world, wear real normal clothes, speak normally, not be weird, not feel weird, has taken me 25 years. Like it's sorry, I'm
insane,
getting
Mike.
I feel like I'm preaching.
I love hearing
Crazy
this.
that, it's crazy that parents would make that decision to do that for their children.
Well,
my,
the thing-
my son recently brought home a pamphlet for an invitation to a Bible camp, and I lost my shit. I contacted Americans United about it. So
Yeah.
here, I was like, this school is not fucking trying to get my kid to go to a goddamn Bible camp. No.
Right.
But after digging, it turns out like they just have them in the office, and he grabbed it. Like so, somebody gave him one. Okay, god damn it.
Christians
You win this
love
one.
preying on kids. I mean that's multifaceted, obviously, but they know that that's a way. That's why Bible Sunday schools and the bus outreaches and things, if they can get through the kids and get the kids excited, then they're going to get the parents. Which again, you know, with all the character qualities, it was an easy way to entrap us children into understanding and learning, and the songs. It was just, oh my God, it's entrapment.
Right.
I'm literally going to bend over to try to find my lens on the floor because my blindness is really bugging me.
It's okay. I want to jump into Chad's story because he has been.
I
so
know he's
loving.
been so patient, Chad.
Well, first of all, yeah, I do want to point out that, you know, Lindsay and I, we've been friends for a while, and her story, I've heard it several times, but every time it just absolutely hits me in the heart. So I will never tire of hearing it. And
but it's such a great love story too, which is so weird.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
fucked up, but it's
And I
so-
just like, I want Bill to shove it.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to my husband, he wrote the letter to my husband.
Yeah.
We were
Do you
already
have that letter still?
engaged. I do. But he literally wrote it to him to try to stop me from getting married to someone that my marriage is a goddamn success, you buffoon. Like, I loved him. That's why I married him. Jesus Christ. Sorry. Drive me nuts. Go,
Okay,
Chad.
Chad.
Please go,
It's
Chad. I'm
Jesus
gonna shut
fucking
up.
Christ. Here, right?
Yeah, Jesus.
Don't let
Jesus
him
fucking H Christ, yeah.
Fucking Christ.
Okay, Chad, you're
All right.
story now.
All right. So the breed.
Anyway,
I
what
gotta
I
give
was
a little
saying
background.
earlier-
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Daddy.
So
My
the
turn to
very
interrupt somebody.
brief version of how we got into it, like there was a little bit of background to how I got out. My dad was an independent fundamental Baptist preacher. He started off at Hyles Anderson College in the IFB, which itself was a cult, and he became a missionary to the Netherlands and Belgium before I was born, and that's where he started homeschooling the older kids in my family. Because he did not agree with the Dutch school system over there. So he just ended up like teaching them at home. When he came back to the States, of course, I was born in between those times over in England. When he came back to the States, you know, they were older. My parents, they put my oldest sister was married. My second oldest sister went off to a Bible college. My older brother went to a Christian school. For me, they wanted to start homeschooling again, and eventually they wanted to bring my older brother back home and start teaching him at home again. And right about this time, my parents were older. My mom went to an OBGYN to kind of prepare for, you know, her 40s and everything that goes along with that. And I happened to be a complete surprise. I was born 9 years after my older brother. So they wanted to avoid that again without taking any permanent steps. So they went to an OBGYN who was a Christian, because my parents insisted on, you know, having Christian doctors. And they said, look, we're done having children.
Jesus, OBGYN, so yeah.
Yeah, right? They're like, we're done having children. We don't want to take any permanent steps. What do you recommend? And he's like, well, have you talked to God about how many children you should have? And so this OBGYN introduced my parents to the Quiverful movement. And then eventually they all went into IBLP as well. So this, you know, this OBGYN and his family became our closest friends in the cult. So we were all here in Birmingham, Alabama. The cult had a huge stronghold here through one of the biggest churches, mega churches in the area, where all the rich people went. My dad was, at this time, was a backwoods pastor in the backwoods of Walker County, Alabama. So for him to hang out with all these doctors and politicians and stuff like that was really heady stuff. He loved it. Mm-hmm. It gave us access to a lot of things. And plus, you know, it was just we felt like we had found some kind of secret thing that not everybody, you know, in our area knew. So my oldest sister, she got into it as well. She eventually ended up having 9 kids. I'm the fourth of 6 myself, because my mom had 2 more after me. And right about the mid-90s, my dad decided to go back to Belgium one more term as a missionary. He had originally left because his hearing had been going. It subsided, kind of plateaued. So he said, okay, I'm ready to go back to the mission field. So in my teenage years, we went over to Belgium, and I studied this ATI curriculum as part of my homeschooling. They wanted to maintain continuity from the time we had been here in the States to the time we were over there in Belgium. So I was the only person in my family who was fully homeschooled his entire life from kindergarten through 12th grade under ATI. Everybody else.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Do you remember when you started with the homeschooling part? Did you start at book 1, or did you just jump into wherever they were at?
We all started at book 1.
Okay.
Yeah, it was book 1 in 1992.
Okay.
And we just kept going from there. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, eventually, we went over to Belgium in my teen years, spent 7 years over there from the time I was 12 to the time I was 19. I ended up graduating a year or 2 early, and from there, like, actually left the cult itself. So since I spent my teen years overseas, I didn't get a chance to go to any of the training centers or headquarters or anything, but I was very familiar with, you know, the teachings of IBLP. I had been indoctrinated in them since, you know, my early childhood. Yeah. And we mostly hung out with other ATI families, American and Canadian, that we knew in Belgium. We were able to find each other. So I spent my entire life, you know, being taught all these things. And when I got out of my parents' house at 19, they decided to leave Belgium, and I came with them. I went to live on my own. I didn't have an education and know shit. Yeah. as you can imagine. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. My parents had kind of been grooming me for the ministry. That really wasn't the direction I was wanting to lean in. I kind of thought I want to get into broadcasting or something like that. So I decided to just kind of, strike out on my own and just, wing it and see what happened. Well, at one point I thought I was going to go into politics. That didn't work out. Bottom line, I eventually, followed my dad to whatever ministry he started working in when he got back to the States. I became a minister of music at that particular church. There was a huge scandal that happened while I was at that church. Exactly. And that was the first time in fundamentalism I've actually seen like a pastor like fall to a scandal. He had to resign and everything. I had never seen that before, in all my life growing up with the cult or fundamentalism in general. So I, approached my dad about it, and I was like, how did this happen? This was supposed to be a good ministry. This is a preacher who was doing all the right things. He was like, well, sometimes that happens. We just don't talk about it.
Yikes.
And then eventually, I moved back to Alabama. All this happened in Mississippi. I moved to Alabama, and I started working. I started working as a program analyst and everything. And I started working for a church on the side again. And while I was working at this fundamentalist church, I started hearing reports about other fundamentalist pastors who were falling to scandal, including the one that my dad studied under at Hyles-Anderson College. The pastor there got convicted of transporting a minor across state lines.
Oh, perfect.
And then eventually, Bill Gothard himself had several of the Gothard girls that he had brought up to headquarters come out against him, claiming sexual harassment and other acts.
Weird.
So I approached my dad about this, and I said, "Hey, what is happening here?" And a missionary that we knew over in Europe, an 80-something-year-old man who resigned a Baptist college that he ran to go play piano at a ministry. He came back to the States for a furlough and was immediately arrested at the airport. Apparently, he had molested children. So all this happened, and I approached my dad. I'm like, "What is happening here?" I said, "This is happening often enough to where this is a problem." And he said, and he said two things. Well, most of those things can't be verified, and second of all, well, sometimes stuff like that happens, but we can't talk about it because it would hurt the ministry. And that was when I said, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for things. I didn't sign up for people to be hurt. Yes. And Jimothy, you're right. Like the Duggars were also raised in ATI. I heard what happened with them. Even way back with Josh and his sisters, I said, this keeps happening. I found out that so many other families in Alabama in ATI had gone through similar things to the Duggars.
Yep.
But of course, they were never on TV, so nobody cared about them.
Yep.
And I approached my dad, and the story was always the same. Well, we can't really talk about it. And that was when I finally said, well, someone's got to. So I left. And I mean, I left very loudly. I was like, this is bullshit.
I can just imagine just like, well, I'm leaving, and
Exactly.
that's final, and just
in that southern accent. This is bullshit.
It's bullshit.
There you go.
So that was when I tried to do mainstream Christianity for the while. But one thing that really bothered me about mainstream Christianity was anytime people would ask me about my background and I would share that story, people would start making excuses for it. So they would say like, well, maybe it was a high controlling Christian environment, but it wasn't bad, or it wasn't an actual cult or anything, was it? And I would just look at him. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, it was a cult. What we experienced, everything, Bill Gothard controlling every aspect of all these people's lives. It's the literal definition of a cult. And
down to everyone wearing the fucking same thing.
Exactly.
I mean, come on. Can it be any more obvious?
Yeah, when we all got together, we all wore white and navy blue, as you said. Exactly.
Tons of compounds. I mean, and honestly, the conditioning is that the door is wide open, but no one leaves.
And that's another thing, too. I have called ATI and IBLP the cult in plain sight. Because, yes, there were things that we weren't supposed to, share outside of our circles. Fine. But anyone could have figured this out. Like, we were holding seminars in the goddamn Thompson Bowling Arena at the University of Tennessee. Like, that was, and we would fill that place up. It was thousands of people there. Of course, obviously, during the summer when everyone was home. But, it wasn't like we were hiding in some compound somewhere. We were doing this all out in the open. Anyone could have picked up a wisdom booklet if they were visiting at someone's home and read through that shit. You did it, Nat. Like, all this happened, and nobody in mainstream Christianity had the balls to say, you know what, this is wrong.
Because they were intimidated by it also, I think, because
Exactly.
they look at TLC with the Duggars. There even people that aren't Christians put those kids on a pedestal saying they're so well behaved. What an amazing family. Mothers were salivating. And you're just like, no, why are you not able to see the conditioning and the indoctrination that is happening to these children? I don't know how people could have been so fucking blinded. My grandparents were
I don't
always
understand how
livid
it's
at my
legal
parents.
here.
It depends
Yeah.
on what state you're in.
It's so
Like, if
common. Like, you can
I
just collect children and keep them in a bunker and teach them whatever. You can just do that here.
Because we have in this country, we have an idea that religion equals good.
Yep.
Like, if it's just a little bit of a stricter religion, well, it's not for me, but it must work for them. I heard people say it about the Duggars. I heard people say it who have been to a basic seminar by Bill Gothard and decided it wasn't for them. But you know what? I'm happy it works for other people. Yeah, well, you're ignoring the fact that the teachings themselves were an actual, stunting, just pile of bullshit that hurt people. And the thing is, no one figured it out because we had this blinder on that, well, it must be doing someone some good.
The ones that knew it were all of us being abused.
Exactly.
So within about a month or two of moving on to that farm and teaching their kids, I had done some math, and the mother and I were doing some stuff while the kids were doing like some schoolwork, and the dad was out doing businessy shit. And I just remember, I keep trying not to say their names, but it comes out. And I'm sorry, I'm trying not to say their names because they apparently live like only 2 hours from me now because they've moved to this area of the woods and of the country. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm a little worried I might bump into them someday. But
person 1 and person 2.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So the mother and I were sitting down. We were having a meal plan and just setting some stuff up for the week.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know what I'm talking about.
Just triggering.
Right. We were going through the list because the stuff that they have to get at the grocery store because it's a big family and you have to go through and like get all the things for all the recipes and then consolidate them.
Yep.
And then the things that we didn't need to do because we had to know what was going on in the greenhouses and how many cows we still had in the fridge and all that stuff. Exactly. Yeah, Jimothy.
Seriously, Jimothy.
Seriously. But I just remember talking to her, and then one day she was just like, Nat, if I had had a child the year that I married my husband, she would have been the same age as you. And I looked at her and I was like, I just had a moment of like, oh, I was equal age difference between her daughter and her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I was that perfect line, which means that she married when she was 18. And it was just really freaky to think about that. So like I had this moment of like, oh, and then she started manipulating and started putting it into the husband's head that I was a God-given 8th daughter. I was meant to be their first child because I am teaching their children what they need to be taught.
Well, there you go.
I'm a living, praying miracle that I was able to survive the American school system and come out as such a reasonable and accepting and godly child.
AKA, husband, I need help and someone's willing to help me. Can we please just like have some help? Thank you.
Yes, and the more they did this, the less they wanted to pay me and more what they wanted to just have me live on site.
Yeah, no.
For everything. So I would only get paid to school the girls, which was only like 4 hours a day. And then the rest of the time I was just doing chores and acting as one of the kids, and we would have Sunday meals. And
I'm sorry. You should get therapy for that. That is fucked up.
I've been through the therapy. I've had 6 years to decompress from this. It's now just such a fascinating story because they experimented with all these different cults, like not just that one. Like the wisdom book was just one of the things. The Abeka books are another. We took all of the kids, and I say we because I was encouraging them to let their daughters go to college away from home. I was trying to get them out. And they were like, great, let's take them to a Liberty University discussion. I didn't know what that was. Or Liberty Hill. What's the name of that college? It's like
Liberty University.
Liberty University it is. Okay. Because I sat there and I listened to it. And if you know me, if you've ever watched me on Nerds and Heresy, when I get into something that I need to ask questions about, I start writing shit down. And I start writing a lot of shit down. The pamphlet that they gave me, I took the pamphlet from two of the girls because I ran out of note space and just like kept writing shit down. I still have that somewhere. All of the questions, because what we went to was a fundraiser meeting for a bunch of people from Austin, Texas, to fund the school. And we brought the girls because we were like, well, you guys might as well have some experience knowing what it is to be in a fundraising position when it comes to schools. And I knew that they were having to go to a Christian school, but I had never been introduced to Liberty before. I didn't know a thing about it. So I show
That's
up.
another nasty snarl of scandal, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I go
Yeah,
there.
epidemic, really.
The dad
Yeah.
loves it, right? He
for
is
sure.
all about liberty for a little bit. And I look at the mom and I was like, no. No. Do not send your daughters here. And then that just turned them off of all education outside of the home. And I was like, God damn it. We were so close.
Yeah.
But I was not sending the oldest one to Liberty. That was not where she needed to go. She's an artsy kid. I wanted her at Juilliard if I could. Like, I wanted her to go somewhere where she could express herself in the most liberal sense possible because she wanted to do photography. Great. Go do photography instead of being a wedding photographer, which was what her parents were like. That's how you'll make money. Wedding photography. Only Christian wedding photography.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I want to travel. You can travel to weddings.
That's really at the core of it. Like, I mean, and good on you for, try for at least making an attempt.
Oh God,
to,
it was
show
awful.
them.
Don't say good on me. This was a bad decision.
Well, I mean,
I'm glad
but at least
happened.
at least you tried to show them, that there was more out there. Nobody did that for me as a kid. Nobody did that for pretty much anybody I knew. I literally had one of the ATI moms tell me that they kept their kids mostly at their farm on purpose, out in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, like literally 45 minutes away from civilization, because they determined that their son could not handle the visual stimulation of the world at the age of 2 in the goddamn Galleria. Because he kept looking at all the pretty lights. They thought he was being afflicted by demons. Therefore, they homeschooled him and mostly kept him at home. That is what we're dealing with here. And no one said anything. This is a respected doctor in our community, and no one saw the problem.
We were so peculiar as kids. We were peculiar kids. Like if we walked through the mall, the boys had to always literally put up blinders. So if a girl was walking with immodest clothing, which was anything not long skirts and fully, robed, they would literally put their hand up. So if we were walking past the Victoria's Secret, my brothers would put their hand up so that they couldn't see the Victoria's Secret as they walked because they just knew where the naughty was. And
Right.
that just became a habit. And so then you look at these families that are dealing with all of this like nasty shit that's going on inside of the families, whether it's molestation or rape or incest or anything like
They don't
that.
even
You're
understand
dealing with
themselves.
all of that because you have absolutely stifled these people from everything.
Right.
Taking everything away from someone and keeping them keeping them in the dark and away from everything only breeds bad things.
Yes.
It's not like that child stays better or gets better. They ignorantly start going into things that are very dangerous and not healthy because there's no other outlet, there's no other avenue, and there's no information or education.
So
This type of
one
stuff
thing-
is rampant in ATI and IBLP,
So
but
the one
ATI
thing that was
especially.
one of the things that was really beneficial was the fact that these girls were on a farm that did literally everything. I was able to explain to them via like artificial insemination of one of their horses how sex works without them getting all freaked out about shit. I was not allowed to use the term anus. I was not allowed to use the term vagina. I had to use like the Christian words. So I was like, you insert it here in the bum.
Dirt star.
I had to.
Bum or the back bum.
But like, well, they knew they had baby goats and baby sheep and baby pigs and baby cows, and they have seen the things that would happen. The littlest one drew a picture one time of some cows making babies.
Oh.
And this was in public one time.
The parents will never be able to show their face
Like, mommy,
again.
wrestling.
I love cows, mommy.
Well,
Oh
the thing
boy.
is, they would correct everyone. It's like, oh yeah, the cows are wrestling. And the littlest one would go, no, they are producing babies.
Yeah.
Produce.
So at least I can say that they weren't completely naive on that fact. However, when it came to the concept of pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
not
There's
a-
no. Don't even
Not
get me
at all.
started. There's like
reading-
I learned
learned
what sex was from a gynecologist.
right.
I learned
but
what sex was from the S volume of the encyclopedia. Not even kidding.
I once used the
I
term
love it,
reading
Chad.
for pleasure.
Oh,
And the
hold
girls
on.
all freaked out
Mhm.
because I used the term pleasure.
This one intended for pleasure?
No, just I said reading for pleasure, just in general.
Oh.
And the parents.
This
heard
book's
me
really
say that
terrible.
word, yeah, right? They heard me say that word, and there's like, "Oh no! You only read for education."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Well, what about like books that are like fun to read for like, you know?"
Oh, you can't give girls romance novels.
Oh,
It'll fill their
wanna know what
brains
I
with
did?
so many
Oh, you wanna
useless
know what I did?
ideas and expectations that won't be fulfilled by their husbands. Like,
I gave the
no,
girls a murder mystery.
sweet.
Wait for
Those
it.
girls all
I
write
gave
fan
the
fiction
girls-
now.
I gave the two
Yeah.
oldest girls my series at the
I read all
time.
their books.
No, I I feel so devious for doing this. Like all of my my cheesy romance like books for like young adults, like those books, I made sure went into the hands of the oldest two. And they went through my stuff as a library because that's stuff that their parents would never buy for them, but it's stuff that they could read. And when I told them about the books, I would leave out anything regarding romance. So what was it called? Wicked Little Liars. It was like they made a fucking show about it
Big
on
Little Lies.
yeah, the Wicked Lies or whatever.
Yeah.
There's like 15 of those fucking books, it felt like. And
Jeez.
and each one of them has some sort of saucy kiss. And so I would just change them out. And the girls were like, oh, I love that book. Let's do another one. And I was like, yay. I was corrupting them little by little, and I was totally okay with it. And the youngest one was like, yeah, oh well. Worth it.
So we're coming up at the end of the show.
Oh, we are, yes. Nerdiness.
I'm dying, but I'm having fun. But I am still dying. Falling asleep, not actually dying. I mean, we're all dying. But anyway, one thing that I'm sure a lot of people noticed about both of you is even though you're raised in this this environment where you were starved from any kind of media stimulation, but you're both very pop culture literate. So when you got out, did you just start binging everything that you had missed, like rabid dogs? Is that how that works?
Kind of. I think for me it was a slow foot in the water, and then wait, I didn't get in trouble. Wait, I'm married, I can do whatever I want. And wait, what? You know, it was just continuing to push what I thought were boundaries. But again, I'm like, wait, there's no resistance here. You know, and you just kind of keep trying. I will say though, like I work in the fashion industry, so I had to catch up even quicker working in that industry. So I just learned to just info dump and try to hold on to as much information as I possibly could. And quite literally have always lived by fake it till you make it. You know, I jump in. I think this is an ATI kid thing Chad and I were talking about recently. We will jump into the pot of hot water, no questions. We'll just be like, cowabunga, like off we go. And we'll just figure it out on our way because that's what we are so used to doing. I think it's through therapy that I've learned to have more boundaries and to like put the pause on things and be like, wait, I have the right to ask you questions. I have the right to say no to something. I don't have to always acquiesce to people. Not everyone holds authority over me, which sometimes I can get if someone's very aggressive or pressuring or overbearing. I will instantly like kind of revert back to certain behaviors, and I have to keep telling myself like, no, you can assert yourself. But you, Chad.
Yeah, so I myself binged a whole lot. I was aware of a lot of things because my older brother, he was raised pre-cult and he was already a teenager by the time we got in. So he was still allowed to keep a lot of like his pop culture things. So I was aware of what most of it was, particularly Star Wars or some, or some Disney stuff or what have you. But and he was big into G.I. Joe. I knew about that. But when I got out of the cult, I was able to actually look into stuff for myself. And I mean, I would like binge YouTube whenever I had the chance. I would like get caught up on things. I watch reviews and stuff. I always had a thing, an idea about. I did Netflix back when it was still DVDs. I was just constantly sending them back and forth, catching up on things. And I was watching some of the movies we were allowed to watch because sometimes we could be a little bit of a backslidden ATI family, and we would watch certain movies as long as we fast forwarded certain parts. And I would like watch them uncensored, and I'd be like, "Wait, we just skipped that. That was nothing." Like, Montoya called the guy a son of a bitch. He kind of was a son of a bitch, really. But yeah, so stuff like that, So yeah, I binged a lot, and I've always had nerdier interests. So, it really helped me come into myself and define a little bit more about what I was into. And like Lindsay said, when you have that feeling of freedom, when you're like, wait, I can do this and I'm hurting no one and it's actually giving me joy. Like that is a feeling that takes a while getting used to. Yeah. But when you reach that is just there's nothing like it. Having that in your adult years when you should have had it in your kid years and everything, I have nothing to compare it to, but it definitely is.
It's really powerful to know that door is open. And when you don't feel that resistance, the anger that I felt when I when I started to actually realize like, wait, I can have joy in life by doing things that I was told were bad, but they're not at all. And like, I'm a responsible adult. Like anyone I know trusts me to do anything, trusts me to make all choices I want for myself. And I'm like, I don't trust me. Like what? Everyone else thinks I'm going to be the perfect person and do the right things. And I'm like, no, I don't have any personal self-confidence thanks to ATI. So it's this like weird rebuilding, and to sometimes, I don't know if you feel this way, Chad, but like for me, sometimes it almost feels like even this still might be fake because it didn't come from an upbringing. It came from a necessity to reacclimate to something. And so it's just like, well, what's the next thing I'm going to have to acclimate to instead of just living my life and moving with pop cultures and stuff like that, like Dabpo was saying.
Exactly.
I find
parenting
that
yourself is hard.
Have the most inner child left when they are an adult are the ones that have had the most repressed trauma.
Yeah.
So and I love bringing that inner child out to the surface and watching it play. I love just dragging it out. Like even like, and as soon as I see the hesitation in the inner child, I'm like, why? Why are you hesitating? Let's do the thing you're hesitating about. Like, let's go and do the thing. Let's go and do it. Like, you're like, I don't know if I should go. And say, yes, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
Make the world exciting. The world was not exciting for us. The world was a really fucking scary place full of demons and satanicness and people with just evil desires and wills.
I
and so
be that happy encourager. That's
the world was a fucking scary spot to be, even married and quote free, the door was open, I could do what I wanted. I still felt all of the guardrails around me for quite a while. It's hard to shake that.
It's not that they're gone. They might be knocked over a little, but they're still there. Like the reminders are still there.
They're there because they were entrenched in us. They were conditioned in us to be there. And they were conditioned at the beginning of such a young age that is CPTSD. And I've gone through 2 years of EMDR therapy to undo the amount of CPTSD that was put in me to where I just have like ridiculous rote memory, muscle memory type behaviors that snap me back into certain positions. Chad even saw it. I know we don't have time to talk about this so much, but Chad saw it when we went back to headquarters where I worked this last year and kind of infiltrated the place. And we ran into somebody that I know. We ran into somebody that I knew from back when I was there. And I was like, still here. Like, he's so old. But he recognized me. And I instantly, like, I'm wearing jeans, a bright colored sweater, a hat. My hair was pink. I have jewelry like crazy and black nails. I was like totally not the girl that he remembered seeing. And I instantly, my behavior just got like really meek and like this weird submissive. I felt myself curl inside and just on the outer to show him my submission, almost like a wolf pack would. And I remember getting like really pissed off at myself. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Girl, you did not go 25 years out of this shit to come back here and have an old man buckle you down. We're just like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. And I remember just getting like kind of indignant in myself. And I'm like, no, I'm going to fucking stand up straight and I'm going to look this man in the eye and I'm going to continue to talk to him. And we got permission to continue to wander the grounds and stuff. But I just still to this day think it's so funny how my body and mind still I have to be very cautious with myself because I will fall back into certain behaviors without even trying.
I'm worried if I ever find those girls again that I might do the same.
I mean, it's hard not to. Yeah, it's a behavior thing.
I don't know if I would with like the girls necessarily, but with the parents, I think I probably would because
Yeah.
I know that they still control those girls' lives. I had somebody in the chat that asked me if I know what happened to them. It's like I am aware of their presence. I still get holiday emails from them.
Oh wow.
I get and when I say emails, I don't mean like a paragraph like, hey, happy holiday. I mean, I get the full blown, like, child number 3 is being courted by this.
Yep. Yeah.
This and this. And we think
every kid gets a chapter.
And the youngest one is now in 7th grade. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? And I'm just like, I'm old.
I want to add a little bit to the whole like getting into headquarters thing.
Yeah.
So
we can extend the time a little bit. I'm good.
That's fine.
Sure.
So I definitely want to get into this.
Oh yeah.
Chad,
well,
I'm gonna let you do this I'm just gonna take a break for a hot second and I'll be right back. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So Lindsay and I actually planned for some time to infiltrate the Oakbrook headquarters of IBLP because we had heard that it's now being shut down. They have been selling off furniture from the place on Facebook Marketplace, and we had heard a lot of rumors about things happening there that were indicating that they were in trouble. So we decided to go up there and see for ourselves. I drove up there. She flew up there. Her and her husband had a thing going on in Milwaukee, so she drove down from that. And we actually were able to go into the headquarters building proper. For Lindsay, of course, having worked there, it was easy for her because she just immediately started walking up the doors and was just like, let's just see if it's open because we used to walk in all the time. And I'm over there just freaking out, going, oh my god, we are.
This is where it all happened.
Trespassing, yeah, exactly. This is where it all happened, and I had never actually been there before, but I had seen pictures of it. And we were taught to revere this place where God was doing so many wonderful things, right? So we found an open door and we walked in, and the place is a mess. Like there's nothing in there anymore. It's empty. Most of the furnishings are gone. It's cold. There's no heat on in the building. And it's October in, the suburbs of Chicago. So we're walking through, we're trying to find any signs of life. We didn't find anyone until we got, like she said, to the very top floor of the building in the old admin areas where she used to work. There was one office that was occupied by one man who she used to know. And like just to see how far it had fallen. He even admitted that they are selling off everything to try to consolidate all their belongings into their other headquarters in Big Sandy, Texas, which is where they're trying to put all their operations. They still do family conferences down there and all sorts of other things. And by the way, another TikToker infiltrated that too and was able to get some amazing footage. But the point is, they're hemorrhaging cash and they're trying to salvage whatever they can to try to, build back something sustainable for the people who have been there for so many years and have propped up this cult and to further the teachings however they can. Bill Gothard, as of right now, is no longer involved, and he's trying to, first of all, sue the place to get back in and also run his own grift, which is essentially the same thing, just repackaged. So all this is happening, but every indication is that the cult itself is in trouble. Numerous reports have come out about their finances, their hemorrhaging cash, They've shut off the homeschooling portion, which was their biggest cash cow for years and years. And one thing that I hope through my platform, and I know Lindsay and we talked about this quite a bit, through TikTok and any other platform we possibly can, is to focus people's attention now more than ever. This is where a lot of Christian nationalism came from. They had their hand in so many pockets. They had so much support from people like Mike Huckabee, Mike Pence, local
Hobby
leaders.
Lobby.
Hobby Lobby gave them most of their properties just free. Let's see,
Or like for $1, so it wasn't
or
like
for $1, yeah.
You know.
Like they supplied them with all these resources.
Yeah.
A lot of what you see today, even all the way down to the umbrella diagram and stuff like that, it had its origins there. Ray Comfort was brought in and given a platform by IBLP to do Hell's Best Kept Secret and the 10 Canons of God's Law. Bill Gothard was the one who helped make him who he is. So
David
now
Barton.
more than
I didn't
ever,
know that.
I want people.
Backstage.
Yeah,
Like
more than ever,
I love Ray Comfort.
yeah. I think we actually ended up going to the same conference. Actually, you and I.
Yeah, we were talking
Rick,
about
at
that.
the America's Georgia.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Way of the
Years and
Master.
years ago.
Yeah,
Oh my
it was,
God.
was it Tennessee?
America's Georgia.
Yeah, I got Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort to sign. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I got Comfort and Kirk Cameron to sign the back of my Bible there.
Oh
And
my God.
we were talking about it, and like we were trying to narrow down the year. We were like, yeah, I think we both went there together. But
You were the
from different
ultimate
churches.
Christian with those signatures on your Bible.
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
But
man.
the point
Yeah,
is,
I burned it.
like,
You were
I
badass.
did.
but the point is, like, if we can get people's attention on it, and if we can finally brand this thing once and for all for everything that is done and everything it continues to try to do, I think there is a good chance we can bring down the cult, and that is ultimately what personally I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are so many out there, including Lindsay, who have contributed to that.
Yeah.
It believes we can kill it.
I mean, here he is ousted. Go ahead, Dadpo.
I was saying, that's what I love about seeing all the Republican politicians talking about banning TikTok.
Yeah.
Is because I've talked about this a couple times. They can't control the narrative there. They've tried, but they can't infect it with bots and Russians and misinformation like they can do Facebook and have another billionaire buy Twitter, and they can't do that with TikTok. Like we run that shit.
Yep.
And they don't like that. So efforts like things that we do on there is making a very noticeable impact, and they don't like it. So since they can't use it, they're just like, oh, let's just say it's bad for children.
Right. Exactly. Now it's
Right,
bad for children.
Right. But
Like,
like
no,
3
it's
years
bad
ago,
for you. It's bad for your propaganda. Anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I never expected to be anyone's source of information ever. Like now I have people that
Fuck
quote
me
me
either.
on their TikToks
I'm an
for
idiot.
whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a powerful platform. It's something I'm so glad that I never thought I would tell my story. Never. And during we have the pandemic to thank for this, because it was during the pandemic that I started reading my journals from back in the day, and I had not looked at them in over 20 years. And I literally was having panic attacks, like trying to read through these fucking books, because I was like, I don't know this person, but I do. It's like I have the decoder ring in my brain, and I know what I was saying in between the lines of what I wasn't saying, because I knew maybe someday my parents might read these, which they actually did when I went to headquarters. Guess what they did? Ransacked my room, found all my journals, and read them all, and then decided to like read me the riot act for, being rebellious and a salacious woman and all these things. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm 18. Literally, I've been under your thumb the whole time. Like, please get over it. But in reading those, I was like, you know what? I had a friend who actually was on TikTok, and she found a creator on TikTok and was like, oh my gosh, I think she's talking about that like thing that you grew up in. And again, I like very limited people that knew my upbringing. I was terrified, especially with the work that I do. I was terrified of anyone knowing that I was raised in a religious Christian cult of all things for fashion industry. Like, So
time, like that does give you an edge, a weird edge, but an edge.
I didn't know it at the time, but but I also I was still living in like a survivor fear of just like
Right.
if someone finds
Oh,
out about
yeah.
this, it's over, it's game over for me. Like what a ridiculous thing to think, but I didn't know any way else to think of it. It was like my dirty secret. But then she was like, I think this creator is doing this, and so I went out and I started listening to some of the videos, and I'm like, oh my god, they are. And she's like, Lindsay, you need to tell your story. Like, you need to just get out here and like, I don't know half your story. I want to hear it. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like my first few videos on TikTok are hilarious because I can barely breathe. And I'm like, well, hello. I think I say something like, I'm coming to all of you on TikTok. Like I'm just showing up somewhere. It's so sad. But then, I get better at it where I'm like, oh, this is, yeah, it's so bad. But I found, I was able to find Chad pretty quickly. I think we connected pretty early on, and a few other
The right
people.
hashtags can bring the people together.
Hell yeah.
Say what you will, the
Bill
algorithm works.
Gothard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hashtag Bill Gothard. ATI gets stuck with some nursing thing, like a nursing school thing. But I'm telling you, hashtag Bill Gothard, there's a trove of stuff to be had out there. And I will always hashtag Bill Gothard because it's, yeah. He's going to go down.
I felt like when I started,
I'm gonna remember my name.
I am hoping and praying, and I know I don't pray very often, but I am hoping and sending information out to you. I have a bug in my house.
Sending
How are
energy.
You alive? How are you alive? What the fuck? Okay. Anyway,
I ask myself that a lot.
sorry, it's a bug. It's like a stink bug. I'm gonna have to catch it later. But I'm hoping one of the girls downloads TikTok.
Look, here's the cool thing about our world now is that if a kid can get their hand on stuff and start searching for certain things, it's amazing what they'll find. I've had people on TikTok reach out to me going, I literally had someone when I first got on, I was not prepared. And they were just like, I think that I'm in a cult. I snuck my mother's phone. Can you help me? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, sweet God. I do, girl. I'm still figuring my own shit out. Like I don't where do you live? I don't know. I don't know what I'm
in your way.
What am I supposed to do? And I think I started realizing like this is a very powerful platform, very powerful tool for us to be able to share and to be able to help others. But we also have to be aware of that effect that we have so that we can be ready to send these people to the right authorities. And I mean, like, whether it's the police or something like that, because I got really freaked out for this girl. She went very detailed into her story, but I'm also like, you could also be a troll. Like, how am I to know what your situation is with the internet? Right. So all you can do is offer up to them the information. I'm not here to be your savior. I'm sharing my story and what I've done to be able to better myself. But down the road, like, you guys have to also do your work and the fight to leave. And I want people to be safe. And so I try to give them resources of how they can be safe, especially if you're women trying to leave these situations, because it's so overlorded over you. You look at the Duggars, you look at Anna Duggar, even with the control that she's under. I mean, no, we don't like what Josh did, obviously, but like, she's still under a lot of control of authority. And like, I feel so bad for that poor girl because she is quite literally trapped. Even if she wanted to get out, she has no resourcing in order to be able to leave. So TikTok is so powerful for us to be able to have that voice and to also give support cautiously.
I learned really quick that you need to figure out where to steer people who really need it. Like when I first started getting popular on TikTok, I got a metric fuck ton of DMs like every day. And it was shit that like I've talked about this before, but shit I'm not qualified to talk about. But so like one that sticks out is a guy was like, hey, I discovered I'm gay, and my wife is trying to make me go back to church so I will be not gay because she thinks I'm going to hell. Should I leave her and my kids? I don't fucking know. Who the fuck would I know the answer to that?
And I'm not going to throw that napalm of my opinion. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what you hope for them, but you're like, you need professional help, sir.
That's what I went looking for.
I only know what I said. I don't know what you're going through, and I need you to go see someone professional for your own good.
Yeah, it's
Well,
really smart, Deadpool.
I've been really open about that, like on my channel too. Like, people have asked me questions about, detailed questions about their situation or scholarly questions about the Bible. I'm like, dude, I think I made it very clear that I was homeschooled in a cult in the backwoods of Alabama. Okay, so I don't know much, but I know the cult. I can tell you about that, and I can point you to other resources.
I will say
People
that
who are
is one of the more
knowledgeable than me.
challenging things.
But yeah,
That when I get questions like detailed archaeological questions about the Bible, I'm like, well, fuck. I don't know archaeology of the Bible. Let me resource this to Dr. Kip. He knows more than I do.
I'm always texting Chad. Chad, what's that one place that I can send this poor person? Help me. I need more sources, Chad.
that is the thing. It has made me
first...
more well versed. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. We still got that delay going on.
Yeah.
Fuck, what was I saying? Yeah, I remember my first TikTok went viral, and a bunch of the questions I got were Bible-related questions, which was crazy because one of the things I was dealing with at that period of my deconstruction was how much I'd wasted the past 15 years of my life and 4 years or 6 years of college. And like I have all this stupid information I'm never going to use. No one's ever going to give a shit about it. And I have all these like people answering these questions. I was like, wait, I know this. Sometimes I had to go back and like dump off the book. It's like, it's been a while. I'm trying to refresh my memory. So yeah, I was blown away. It's nuts. And then
I have. It's funny because I'm kind of similar in that. Where like I went out and I bought, because I'm almost ashamed to say it. I literally went out and I bought like the stupid books that we had when I was growing up, so that I can do like even the.
I recognize the books.
What is this one? Beautiful Girlhood. This shit. I can't wait to light it on fire on TikTok.
Oh my God, you have it. The utmost for my highest.
Oh no, not my utmost for his highest.
For his highest. I got that.
I know that one.
3 times.
You want your daily reading of scripture and weird
I
shit,
got
don't you?
Gift at Christmas.
But yeah.
I
bought all
that.
I'm high and sweet in high places, blah blah blah. Anyway, so I went through I bought all these books at like super cheap, and I could tell that the woman I was buying it from was super funny because all of the pictures were of her taking a picture of the book on her denim skirt.
Yes.
And I was like, you are so funny. I can't even. And the calico print on her long sleeve shirts. I was like, damn it, I know I'm getting some good stuff. She thinks it's going on for the betterment of Christianity. And I'm like, no, actually, it's not. I'm sorry.
I'm using it against you.
Pretty much. I'm exposing. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, I am really happy that you both came on. Your stories
Thank you so much.
are awesome.
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing more about them in the future.
Well, my Cult Chronicles has all the juice. All the tea is there.
I love it. So yeah. God, I don't even know how to end this. I just you guys are awesome. I want to talk to you more about things and stuff, but like not recorded. And
well, I appreciate Captain Deadpool. Thank you, and Nadia. Like, thank you so much for like having us. This was Chad and I just love being able to have these platforms where we can share more with people that maybe haven't heard about this. Again, the Duggars were raised in this, so the TLC show, 19 Kids Accounting, just so people understand, like we were literally the same thing. It's not like we were in something similar. We were the same thing, and there were hundreds of thousands of children that were subjected to this cult and training. And so we appreciate you guys giving us this space to be able to share this with everybody, because there is so much insidious nastiness that has gone on with this that gets covered up and not talked about consistently. So thank you for giving us this opportunity.
I'm just happy that I now know the origin. I'm just happy I now know the origin story for the fucking wisdom books. Like I didn't know the origin story. I didn't know who, like, I mean, I knew Bill was the thing, like, he was the author. But, like, at the same time, it's like, I didn't know what it belonged to. I just knew that it was in the Christian concept. And I was like, I don't know what this belongs to. It's just a thing. It's a thing that I was presented with.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to be able to identify that now, which is pleasant.
Totally.
We just keep coming back to the wisdom book.
The wisdom book just keeps coming. Oh
I'm
man, no, that wisdom book.
It's like the fifth time we've come back to it.
It still throws me off. Like,
thanks again, you guys. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, y'all.
Still got
Very much appreciated.
It was so nice having you guys. Sorry, I was just like,
Thanks, you guys, for sticking with us in the chat. Thanks. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions. But yeah, stay tuned. More shenanigans. And here's your weekly reminder that I'm really bad at shows, and I'm just going to end the broadcast. Bye. Wait, I think I have an outro. That's right. I forgot I made an outro. Wait,
we have an outro.
Oh, I better hold on to my hair.
Hold on to your butts.